Hello and welcome to the Switchrpg podcast. I am one of your hosts, Gio, and I'm joined, as always, by Jonny. Jonny, what's going on?
Everything's good. My hair's getting so long.
Oh my. I'm so kind of jealous. I have, none of that.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I also haven't, washed my hair in a week.
Oh, man. You may want to, look into that. I'm glad I can't smell you from here. If this is your first time... I'm sure you do. If this is your first time listening, this is the show from Switchrpg.com, where we bring you the latest in the world of RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. This week, we are discussing the Switch RPG Award nominees. If you haven't heard, please go to Switchrpg.com, take a look at those nominees, and let us know what you think. Did we leave anything out? What would you have done differently? I'm sure there's something or someone out there that has a difference of opinion, and much more. But first, what have you been playing, Jonny?
So where I last left off, I think I was playing a couple of different things, but now it's pretty much been 2 games, mostly just one game, which is Ogre Battle 64, Person of Lordly Caliber, and I am getting into the groove of that game. It is so good. The story is a whole lot better than what I remember, and I barely remember anything from my first play session with that, 18 years ago or whatever.
A long time ago.
Yeah, beating that game a long time ago, and now I'm just going through again. I am, if I had to guess, 2/3 through the game.
Okay.
So putting in quite a bit of time. The game clock, the in-game clock is bugged. So when you you can change the game speed, and I think when you do that, the clock ends up counting at double the speed. So the clock maxed out at 99 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. So it's 100 hours, right?
Yeah.
And it maxed out, but it also got to that point at twice the speed. So I've probably put in about 50 hours. I'm probably a little bit over 50 hours now. I'm somewhere in between 50 and 55 hours into the game. But that clock is now forever stuck. Because it doesn't go into the hundreds of hours, which is weird. So and not only is it buggy on the speed of the clock, but it's also buggy on the fact that it has a upper limit. So there's that. But the game is just great. Really digging the story. It's hitting a lot of good places. It is the de facto game. I can't even think of another game out there, or RPG, or just any game for that matter, that tackles a revolution. Because that's what the game is about. The game is about a revolution from start to finish, sort of, with fantasy elements, and also tackling it from multiple angles. You get to see it from a revolution within a nation that was pieced together, kind of from a bunch of different people of geological ethnicities by this bigger empire called Lotus, and they're sort of the nation that you're in, called Palatinus, is basically they are the puppets of Lotus, the Holy Lotus Empire. The Holy Lotus Empire, I've had to compare them. They're kind of like Nazi Germany and the Holy Roman Empire put together. If you have to combine the two, that's kind of what they are. They're religious nuts. Also the Knights Templar from 1,000+ years ago,
right?
From Crusade times. They're kind of like that. They're very very
zealots. They're religious zealots.
Yes, yeah. They're very religious zealot type things, but they're also run by a pope that sort of makes all the major decision making, and then they also do kingmaker type stuff where they have they don't take over. They do take over some nations, but they'll also prop up their own like kings, appoint their own kings or whatever. It's almost kind of like what the United States has been doing for decades, or probably the past 100 years now, is sort of like causing other smaller nations to sort of rise and fall. Lots of imperialism. Lots of
Yeah.
imperialism.
Right.
So really good stuff. And then there's a revolution that happens, and because it's getting so big, the Holy Lotus Empire has to get involved because they're not satisfied with how much it's spreading, and just lots of stuff. There's slavery in there. It tackles like
Wow.
some really serious stuff. The only thing that is unfortunate is the translation isn't super. It's not bad. It's just not as good as it could be, and also it still has like a little bit of the 90s sort of wordage in there, and attitude of some of the characters, where it could be, if it was handled better, it would be more accurate to the time or the world that it would be in. But uh, definitely enjoying it. Really enjoying it. The
Okay.
story is definitely better than what I thought it'd be. And so I'll have more to say when I beat that again for the second time.
What
And I
one thing I can't like get over with are the names of these ogre battle games, like Person of Lordly Caliber, Let Us Cling Together. what, what else do we
Arch
have?
of the Black Queen.
Like I don't know, they're just so something's with them. Um
So they're based on Ogre Battle is based on a song from Queen called Ogre Battle.
from Queen?
Queen.
Okay.
Queen has a song called Ogre Battle.
And
Also, Queen has a song or an album, I think it's a song called March of the Black Queen. Also, Queen has a song called Let Us Cling Together.
so all these are based
See a
off
pattern
Queen
here?
Queen songs or
Well,
Queen the band?
a lot of Queen influenced stuff, and also a lot of just 80s metal and 70s and 80s metal
Okay.
influences. For example, one of the characters in Ogre Battle 64 is called Dio. So, there's a lot of influence there. And he kind of looks like Dio too.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
he's got like the black kind of curly hair, and yeah.
that is that's a little known fact. I never I never knew that. That's
Yep.
funny.
Yep.
Also Banner of the Maid, just a recent example I could think of Revolution. Like this, it's based off. It's an alternative French
French
Revolution.
Revolution, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
but this one's
I'm sure Ogre Battle takes it to a whole other level, but
yeah, it's not a historical revolution. It's a game that's written from the ground up
yeah,
without any kind of external influence. I mean, all of the Ogre Battle games have tackled like some sort of key points of influential time periods in war, especially more modern war. Everything from like, I would say, like World War I and newer. They've sort of what was it? I think it was the Serbian War, or the Bosnian
Bosnian. Hmm.
Bosnian Bosnian Civil War, or Bosnian War.
Yeah,
Bos-
Bosnia was in Civil War a while ago.
yeah, in the 90s, I
Yeah.
think it happened.
Yep.
Yeah. So that influenced one of the Ogre Battle games, or in the 80s. I think it might have happened in the 80s. I think that one influenced the story. What happened there influenced what happened in Let Us Cling Together, I think,
Interesting.
to a certain degree.
Yeah.
They're all standalone stuff, but there's influences in there. It does tie a lot into like racial stuff. Well, Let Us Cling Together is very it's all about racial tension.
Hmm.
Uh, Person of lordly caliber, as I said, slavery is a big part. It's all about classism. Actually, almost all the ogre battle games are about and tactics ogre games are about classism, and the haves versus the have-nots, the people who control versus the people who are controlled, and that's what it's all about. And it's about rising to power, and then what you do when you when you subvert those in power, what is the new system that you put in place?
Right.
Are you now just going to be one of them? They even question you on that. They questioned you on that on Let Us Cling Together. They did it again on Person of Lordly Caliber, where they bring it up as like a thinking point. It wasn't necessarily a decision point, but it was more like a thinking point. Like you gotta, by the way, because they bring it up like I would say about like halfway or less than halfway into the game. By the way, you should start thinking about you're going to how you're once the revolution succeeds. You got to think about what's going to happen afterwards and how you're going to rule the people or how the people should be ruled. Like
Right.
it raises those questions.
Yeah, I remember that being an issue, especially in the Bosnian, because I remember the Bosnian civil war. I want to say it was like early to mid '90s, where there was genocide happening in there.
Yeah.
So the U.S. stepped in, and then a lot of people were like, okay, you've stepped in, you've whatever you did whatever you did. Now what? Now you need to help us and reform us, not reform us, but basically help us get back on our feet. And yeah, it brings that question like, all right, now what?
Yep. And that is kind of that theme, that sort of subject matter is in the ogre battle games, and
Interesting.
it's in kind of an integral part of the story. Sometimes a little bit looser, some way tighter than that. Like Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together. That's a very tight part, as well as other things like just awesome stuff right there. And they do it in Person of Lord Caliber. It's not executed as well, but it's real good. Real good.
I wonder why games don't really tackle stuff like that anymore. I mean, I know it's really a touchy subject, but the way that Ogre Battle does it is they'll take the points of, say again, I'll bring it up, the Bosnian conflict. They'll bring up those points and essentially make, you know, put a facade on it, right?
Yeah.
And basically make it a game. Now, you don't see a lot of that. I don't think anyway.
Yeah, it's metaphorical, right?
Right,
Right.
right, right, right.
It's using that as its theme and that as a metaphor for things that happen in real life. It yeah, it's a shame that other games don't do it. A lot of games they just get a little bit too into their own fantasy and
They're trying to
don't
build their own world
they
and
build their own
whatever.
world and they go too much into the fantasy part, whereas the ogre battle games stay at least the fundamental story stays grounded in real uh, machinations, right?
I gotta
Uh,
Google that one.
uh, Basically, just kingmaker type stuff, Game of Thrones type stuff, right?
Okay.
Politics, right? Things that only happen with humans, right? A lot of other games will have like this evil, alien thing or this evil thing from a comet, or this big dragon that's going to destroy everything. But in the ogre battle games, the big bad is nations. It's the people that run these nations and these
hmm
countries and these peoples, and the feuds, the feuding that happens between them for seemingly trivial reasons. In Tactics Ogre, it's the racial stuff. In Ogre Battle 64, religion is a big part of it. There's the Holy Lotus Empire are like religious zealots, and there's a faction within the Platinus region that celebrates a very different religion. And Lotus was kind of like, we're not going to mess with you just yet, but we don't like that. They allowed it to happen, and I don't want to say anymore, but
Right.
that
But
becomes
but
an
you're right.
issue.
It is like the Game of Thrones where, there's plots and schemes and
Big time, yeah, big
doing
time.
all this stuff. Yeah.
And this also happens in Final Fantasy Tactics. It was more about the politics, although Final Fantasy Tactics does the fantasy parts do
hmm
become a core part of the story, the fantastical fantasy elements. Whereas in the Ogre Battle series, yes, there is some degree of fantasy that gets in the way of the politics, but it's not the main point of the storyline. The main point of the storyline is the politics that's involved, and the fantasy stuff is more so just power, right?
Okay.
The
Yeah.
acquisition of power. That's the fantasy element where in ogre battle it happens pretty early on. There's this fruit thing. You eat this fruit and from a very certain tree, and it gives you this evil what was it called, like dark aura, I think it was called, or something like that. It's this evil power. You become powerful, but you're also corrupted. So people who are seeking power, it's people who are losing their political footing, and they, through the frustration of not being capable of making change, they become desperate, and in their time of desperation, they seek out this power. They can succumb to the influence that this power has, the appeal of the
Hmm.
power. And that's what ends up happening with some characters here and there throughout the plot and the various plots in the ogre battle series. So
Mm.
that's about as heavy or involved as the fantasy stuff kind of gets with the ogre battle stuff. It's all of the games so far have been like really good storyline stuff, if not the best. So
They really
really,
need to put something new out there.
yeah. Well, that's not going to happen because Square is just sitting on one of the best franchises of all time. Just
Yeah,
sitting on
pretty good stories.
the best story.
All right,
And
cool.
I'm sticking with it. Let Us Cling Together is still the best. My mind is probably never going to change on that one. That storyline is so amazing. All right, so the other game I've been playing is Jet Lancer. Very different game. It's like an arcadey
What?
jet twin stick shooter. It's not twin stick, but it's, I don't know. You're on a like a F-16 type of jet fighter, but it's not an F-16. It's like some special one that can like turn on and off its engines, so you can kind of switch your momentum as you're flying through, and you're doing dogfights, and it's a 2D game. So you're doing 2D dogfights with like this very maneuverable type of ship where you can turn off your engines. You'll continue to your trajectory and then turn yourself mid flow so that you can shoot behind you and stuff like that. It's really cool stuff. It's a kind of a fun game to watch. I'm fumbling a little bit with the controls, but it plays really good. I just got to get used to the controls. Also, the times I've been playing it was with a Joy-Con drift type
Oh,
of controller, so that got in the way.
yeah.
So I got to play it with my pro controller and to get better at it. It also has like a ranking system, so very arcadey stuff. Like you just do a level. Each level is like at most a minute long. They're very, very short sequences. The story is complete garbage.
Just mindless.
It's just mindless stuff to get you from one level to the next, and then they have this metagame part of it where you can augment your jet fighter with different abilities. So you can have loadouts, and you can change your loadout, and you can earn more stuff so that you can make your load. You eventually get more and more loadout stuff
Yeah.
as you continue to play through it. You also get ranked on each of the levels based on your performance. So that's another arcadey thing to do, and it's very nice. It almost presents itself like Advance Wars did, because Advance Wars it's kind of like an arcadey-ish take on turn-based strategy. I know
I
it's weird,
I
but
I understand what you're trying to say. But
when you actually fire it up and play it, if you've played the Advance Wars games, you'll know what I'm talking about, because it looks art style and sort of the feel of how things look. Yes, the gameplay is like completely different, but how things are presented to you, the ranking of missions and stuff like that, it kind of has that Advance Wars type of feel. Also, the storytelling is a lot like Advance Wars storytelling.
right.
It's for that same kind of young teenager type level of storytelling. It's not like serious stuff at all.
Not at all, right?
Yeah, but it's real good.
Wow.
That's what I've been playing. What have you been playing?
What? Oh, what I've been playing, I'm still hacking away at Dark Souls Remastered. Um, I don't want to say I'm a pro, so I'm not gonna say it. But I'm not a pro. I'm I'm only kidding. I just like to give my brother-in-law a hard time, which is a funny story. Which is why I started playing Dark Souls Remastered to begin with. He had bought it. He said, "There's no way. This is an impossible game. No one has beaten this game," which obviously is not true. I said, "You know what? Give that stupid game to me. Let me play it. I'm gonna put it on YouTube that I beat it, and I'm gonna show it off in front of everyone, and I'll make fun of you. I don't know, whatever." So that's the whole reason why I started playing Dark Souls Remastered. He borrowed my copy of Dark Souls 3, and he has been playing it like unbelievably. Like I played and beat that game like a while ago.
This
And
is
he
on Xbox.
Xbox One.
Okay.
And so he's been playing it nonstop, constantly texting me about, all right, I'm on this boss. He's almost done with the game already. Like
Where
it
is
has
it?
he just beat the dancer of the Boreal Valley.
Okay.
Because that is he let me know because that's one of my favorite bosses in that game.
Yep.
Not that it's difficult or anything. It was kind of challenging, but I just like the music that plays in that boss fight.
Yep.
I love the character design. I like the animations. I think it's just an awesome character.
Well,
And then
that fight you can actually do early in the game.
right. And I told him that. I said, you could do that really early. And I ended up doing it too early. And it really, it was very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Which is a problem. But anyway, he had let me know that he defeated that boss. And I said, all right, the next boss, that's my favorite, are the twin princes. I don't think that's what they're called. I want
There's a dragon, the
yeah.
dragon rider, I think, or dragon slayer.
Yeah, I like I want to say it's the Lothric Prince. I think I'd have to look it up. But it's
Oh,
basically the one with two princes.
yeah. But before you get to that fight, there's you have to fight I think there's a dragon they have to fight, or
There is a
two.
dragon. Yeah.
And then there's also the dragon rider slayer person.
Yeah.
I think they have like a big giant shield. That was kind of a tough fight.
Yeah. I do remember that.
Yeah.
But the next my next favorite one was the princes. I like that music and that character design and everything. But the whole point is he's enjoying it. And I'm wondering like what is the difference here? Does it just look better? Yes. Maybe there are more refinements. Maybe that's it for him. Um, so I'm not sure what it was that he just wasn't getting with Dark Souls Remastered, but actually hitting on with Dark Souls 3.
Does Dark Souls 3 run at 60 frames a second?
He's playing it on right now. He's playing it on the Series X. I don't know if
That might be running on at 60 frames a second.
maybe that's the difference.
Because I know that Dark Souls 2 was when the Dark Souls games started to run at 60, but Dark Souls 2 was only running on 60 on PC.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say I thought that
then,
was like a difference between the console and the PC, where the
yeah.
PC were the only ones that got the 60 FPS. I'm not sure.
Well, it came out on 360, and
Dark,
then
yep,
when they did Scholar of the First Sin on Xbox One,
yep.
that came with the DLC and stuff like that. That I think that build of that enhanced version of Dark Souls 2 had the 60 frames per second on the newer on the current gen systems, or the previously current gen systems, the
Right.
Xbox One and the PS4.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe the higher frame rate is what's helping him. I mean, on my honest opinion, Dark Souls 3 is the better of the trilogy anyway. So he's playing an overall better game, in my
Well,
opinion.
yeah, maybe he also like got some skills that
Mm-hmm.
he was hitting the wall hard with Dark Souls, but he learned the skill set to a certain degree and was able to hit the ground running with
Yeah.
Dark Souls 3.
And I did tell him that. I said, I bet now if you were to go back to Dark Souls Remastered, you'd probably do a lot better. Because in my honest opinion, it's an easier game. So
Big time.
You just go in there with your shield and running around, you know? But anyway, yeah, I've been playing that. I've been doing a little bit of farming because I'm trying to get to, I think it's level 30 or something. I want to get my vitality up to 30, my yeah, vitality endurance up to 30, and then start increase. I'm going for a dex build because I got the Balder side sword, which
Yep.
scales incredibly with dex. And apparently it's a very rare drop. I got it on my first kill of the Balder Knight. I think that's what it was. I think there are a few of them. So I think that's what they're called. Anyway,
I'm trying to remember what the is it a dagger weapon or is it an axe?
no, it's like it almost looks like a fencing sword.
Fencing sword.
Yeah, it's very small, thin. Anyway, so yeah, Dark Souls Remastered. I started playing Star Renegades. I was, we talked a lot about it, like the animations in the combats. And yes, the animations, the combats looks phenomenal. The sound design when it's working is awesome. There's just some issues with it right now. If you're willing to get it now and wait out the problems, fine. But there are some problems. The game's crashed on me probably 3 times, in about 5 hours, 6 hours maybe of game time. Otherwise, other than the crashing, the game needs to be fixed. Other than that, the overworld is kind of, it's a roguelite. So the overworld, when you're not in combat, it's just the overworld is kind of useless. There's really not much exploration there. Basically just jump from zone to zone. Once you jump into a new zone, you just fight an enemy. And once you defeat that enemy, there may be some sort of upgrade. That upgrade could be a card that you use to camp after everything is done, or maybe in between days of the overworld. Some missions take 3 days, so you do camping in between and use these cards to buff up your body or maybe even heal up your party. So there's that, and then there's also some sort of nemesis system, like in Shadows of Mordor, where if the enemy beats you, they go into ranks on that specific planet, and they can become more difficult. So that sort of nemesis system, I haven't really lost too many battles to really experience a lot of that. So I don't know. The jury's still out on that. But like I said, the animations look really, really cool. I feel like I'm still learning a lot of systems that they're still throwing on me even after 5 to 6 hours. So I don't know. I think it's still buyer beware for now. I want to say it's about $25, but maybe hold off for now. Um, I don't know if you're playing this, but I'm playing Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity.
I am not playing it yet.
Do you have it, or you just
Just the demo, and that's
okay?
it.
Okay, I'm about 20 maybe hours, 25 hours into Age of Calamity. I am having a really good time with it. I haven't had a good time with a game in a while. I'm going to be honest. It's been a while. This year, I don't know what it is this year. I have not played a good a game like this in this year. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I'm with you. There
yeah,
hasn't been anything outrageously good on Switch this year. There's
it's
been
it,
very few.
it's been a tough time for me. But Hyrule Warriors. Now, forget about the original Hyrule Warriors for a second, okay? Because that has very little to do with what you're seeing in Age of Calamity. Age of Calamity, I think, tells a really good story, a prequel, and I'll throw that up in quotes because Evan on our site has thrown up a pretty good argument about why it may not be a true prequel, but I want to consider it a true prequel. It tells you the stories of the Great Calamity, and I think those story beats and those scenes are really done well, and in fact, maybe even done better than in Breath of the Wild. So those hit pieces, those story pieces that you're taking part in the battle are really, really good. The battle is, it's a Misu game, so the battle is what it is. You're just gonna button mash, because you're doing these button mash combinations. But there's all sorts of other things. There's your special attack. There's different you have the Sheikah talent, so like your magnesis, your stasis, your cryosis, your like all those things. You still have those
And those
abilities as well.
and those are for all characters to use.
Every single character has that ability. Yes. Um, so the combat I think is unique enough to keep you interested, even though it is a button mashing type of game. And it does a good job as to tell you where to go, what to do in terms of how to manage your party, whether you want to order them to different places, and then once they get to that place, you can switch to them really quick, take care of that battle, capture that zone or whatever. So I mean, it's a fairly seamless battle. I think it does a really good job in that, but that's not what Age of Calamity is really about. It's really the narrative. And I think you and I were on this anyway, that this is going to have that all important narrative for the prequel or the story before Breath of the Wild. And it's hitting on that. I'm not done with it, but it's doing a great job at that.
Oh.
I think. Now, what Evan had said at switchrpg.com, that this isn't a true sequel, is the addition of the baby guardian. So the addition of that baby guardian being existent, having it being exist in Age of Calamity and not in Breath of the Wild, excludes it from being a true prequel.
I don't think it does
I'd have
because
I'd have to see the outcome. I really need to see the outcome of it all.
it's there in the opening sequence. There, you don't even have to know what the outcome is
For
because
what? For Breath of the Wild?
for Age of Calamity on the opening sequence.
Right.
Because
You understand why it's an Age of Calamity, but there's no signs of it at all in Breath of the Wild. There's no
no,
mentioning of it.
and that is the answer
Well,
because it doesn't appear in Breath of the Wild. Because what happens is the first time that opening sequence. So this is not a spoiler. I mean, it's the
right.
opening. It was actually in the trailer that they released, right? That little tiny baby guardian. It is in the end. It opens up with the ending where Calamity Ganon appears, destroys destroys everything. Zelda's like, "Oh no, things are going crazy," and that thing is about to get blown up because Hyrule Castle got stormed by all the Calamity Ganon things, the other guardians, the corrupted guardians,
Yep.
and then it goes into a time loop going back, I don't know, a year, whatever I'm guessing, or a week.
Whatever that time frame is.
Yeah,
Yep.
it goes back in time, and that gives you everything you need to know.
Right, but
Because
it goes
it's
back it goes back in time, but when you experience those times
yeah,
in Breath of the Wild, you have those memories that you can capture, and it gives you some of those scenes, right? The baby guardian, I think,
it's not going that far back
it's
because it's only going. I didn't even mean to say a year. It's only going as far back as like a week.
right,
I would have to,
whatever that time frame is, yeah.
yeah, and it lives through that week, and that's that week or 2 weeks, whatever that time period is. That is the Age of Calamity storyline, and then that ends the same way always. And because it ends the same way always, that guardian is in a forever loop of going back in time and repeating like Groundhog's Day. Instead of Groundhog's Day being one day, it's reliving that 1 week or 2 week, whatever that time frame is. It's reliving
Okay.
that over and over again, and nothing's changing.
I'm gonna have to
Not enough. Not changing enough.
right. I'm gonna have to go
It,
back and just really kind of try and pay attention to when things are happening.
because the proof is in the pudding. If it changed, if that thing going back in time resulted in a change in the outcome of what happened in Breath of the Wild, in the fall of the kingdom and Zelda imprisoning Ganon for
Mm-hmm.
100 years type stuff. If it changed that outcome, then it wouldn't have to go back in time, and then that would also mean that what happens in Breath of the Wild, storyline wise, fundamentally changes.
Right.
So because that doesn't, I'm guessing they would not want to redact the story of Breath of the Wild, and I think they don't want to make this story insignificant. Because if they just made this story insignificant in the way that it does do things that causes a divergence in the timeline,
Yeah,
and
they wouldn't want to do that.
they wouldn't want to change the canon. So because they're not changing the canon, they put that thing, Guardian, in an endless loop. So things can what ends up happening, what we know to happen as the end result, because of Breath of the Wild takes place in the future of Age of Calamity, it doesn't change, so it's still canon.
Okay. Well, I'm
Canon.
not done. I'm
I have
not right. I'm not done with it. So I mean, I need to see it to its fullest. Right. I need to see actually what happens and kind of go from there. But if you're at all a Zelda fan, definitely recommend it. If you're a Breath of the Wild fan, temper your expectations because it's not Breath of the Wild. There's very minimal exploration. Like if you wanted to take some time to look for Korok seeds and whatnot, there's very little exploration. But some of the important like places are there, like the Temple of Time, Hyrule Castle, in certain battles. So um I don't know. I think it's definitely worth a play. Just know that it's not Breath of the Wild, playstyle wise at all. Um, but I do recommend it. My son hates it because it's not Breath of the Wild. So that's just one example there. Because like, Daddy, I can't go wherever I want. I can't because that's what he loves about Breath of the Wild. He sees something in the distance and he just goes for it. It's just different.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. All right, that is what I've been playing, and tomorrow I'll be playing something probably very different, but I do want to finish this game. Um, so quick housekeeping, don't forget to visit our Discord, discord.switchrpg.com, our socials, we got Twitter, we have Facebook, we have merch on our website. Go visit switchrpg.com for all that. All right, cool. New game announcements, we have some one, two, three. I'm not counting that last one. Just to spite you.
What?
Deck building deck building RPG Deck of Ashes is coming to consoles very very soon. Another card based RPG here. Let me just read this. This is on RP Gamer. A publisher Buka Entertainment has announced that it is bringing developer it's spelled AI, so I'm not sure how to say it. I Games Dark Fantasy deck building RPG Deck of Ashes to consoles next year after a long early access period, which is, I don't know that that's a good thing when something's in early access for way too long. It means it was put in the oven too early or something. I don't know. I can't even think of an analogy.
People were tasting the batter before it was ready to bake.
Or maybe even like the raw ingredients if it's been that long. Anyway, after a long period of access period, the game released for PC and Mac in June of this year. Now will be coming to Xbox One, PS4, and Nintendo Switch in spring 2021. So we have a few months to wait, along with timed exclusive new character. Wow, that's really interesting that an indie game has a timed exclusive new character. Okay. So yeah, what does this game look like? It says Q2021 in the thumbnail here.
It looks pretty good. I like the art style. It's got like a comic book art
Hmm.
style to it, almost like Darkest Dungeon.
Yeah.
The line work isn't as thick as Darkest Dungeon, but it how to describe that? The characters, they kind of look like a certain thing. Either way, I mean, it looks pretty good. I'm getting the vibes of like Darkest Dungeon and what's that other game? Slay the Spire
Slay the Spire. Yep.
kind of vibes, because it's definitely a roguelike. It, I mean, it looks like a roguelike to me.
Yeah. I have that feeling as well. I'm looking at the overworld. There's just lots of stuff to go on, but yeah, I think your mixture of games hits it
It,
pretty good.
it's a card battling, deck assembling, roguelike campaign mode adventure style RPG game, and it looks pretty good. I'm liking the artwork. It it's very cohesive. It doesn't have anything that's standing out as being like uh super low budget or amateur at all.
Hmm.
Everything looks good. I mean, it's not like the best polished of things, but it looks real good. This is
Well,
like a game that I would totally play if I ever had the chance or opportunity to. As usual, I would always wait for reviews
sure.
and see how it pans out.
All right, we will see. Deck of Ashes coming sometime this spring. All right, next we have Mercenaries, Blaze, Dawn of the Twin Dragons, uh, coming this month. I want to say like really, really soon. Let me see here. Let me just quickly read. All right, Mercenaries Blaze, Dawn of the Twin Dragons, seeing Western release on Switch this month. Um,
This month.
so yeah, this article is on Nintendo everything. All right, so it's now getting a Western release this month with Circle Entertainment and Ridian announcing a December 17th date for North America and Europe. All right, cool. So if you're not familiar with the Mercenaries games, they're very much in the same vein as Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yep.
Um,
It's a tactics game.
I think there are two people with mercenary games. They either love it or hate it. So if you've played the previous ones, I don't you may be into this one. I'm not very familiar with other than it's a tactics game. And very akin to Final Fantasy Tactics.
Well, the Mercenaries games, those like three of them, right? The Mercenaries Saga had three of them, and then I
Hmm.
think it had like a fourth one in that trilogy of three as well, something
Yeah.
like that. It had like a ridiculous number of them. I think the big thing, from what I remember, the big thing that was detracted from Mercenaries was the story was either bad or terrible or boring, like just who cares, boring type
I mean,
thing.
I mean, do you recall if the gameplay was there?
The
Like,
gameplay was there. It wasn't. There was nothing that kind of stood out as being exceptional, but it was definitely there. It had what you wanted in a tactics game. It didn't have everything that you wanted, and it didn't elevate it beyond uh, what you'd kind of expect from like Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre.
right.
Uh, but I mean, this could be the one. I mean, they've been working on this. This is what the I guess the fifth game now in the series.
I'm not
If I
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
I hope the story doesn't continue. I hope you don't have to play the other ones in order to play this one.
Sure. Yeah.
So first thing I hope is that this one is the one that like really elevates it to another level.
Hmm.
And if it does that, awesome. I'm totally down because I love these games, as I already talked about many times.
Right.
And if it also kind of does something new with the story could still be bad-ish,
Right.
but as long as it doesn't require you to play the previous ones, then I would totally be on board as long as the game itself runs really well and doesn't sort of do things in the bad ways of doing things.
Sure. I think we'll be at Switch RPG covering this game as well. So we'll see. It says in here, new to the series for Mercenaries Blaze, Dawn of the Twin Dragons are fully 3D battle maps, along with improved visuals and audio. Character designs are from Mr. Masayoshi Nishimura. I think I'm saying that right. With the varied cast telling an exciting and surprising story. So it doesn't really say if it's a new story. It doesn't say if it's a continuation either. So I don't know.
It might be a news. I mean, this this has a chance to have me be excited to like a 9 or a 10 level excitement.
I don't
Like this
believe
has
it. I don't
It
believe
could
it.
ramp me up. It could, like, set a fire under my feet.
I don't believe it.
I could be like "Ah, it's just another Mercenaries game, it's probably not that good." Or I could completely 180 and be like, "I am getting this game. I don't even need to see the reviews come out," even though I'm definitely gonna see the reviews come out.
Oh man, so that is coming December 17th. Next we have it's a second trailer. I'm not sure if we've mentioned this game before. It's called Kingdom of Night. They've released a second trailer. This is from Dangan Entertainment and Black 7 Studios. They've passed along a second trailer for Kingdom of a Night. It's an isometric action RPG for the Switch. You can see a trailer on YouTube. I'm trying to get their, oh, it's right here, their previous post. This is again on Nintendo everything. This was posted in April 23rd, their first trailer. So it has been quite a while.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's so yeah, I got this press release and I saw the art for it and I thought it was like, oh, it's just gonna be another pixel art horror type game. Then I started to see it play out. I'm like, oh, I'm getting like a little bit of a Stranger Things vibe, and then things continue to play out. I'm like, this game is doing some weird stuff and it's looking good, and it actually has combat that
yeah,
looks a little nuanced. I'm like, I think I have to pay attention to this game. So,
and that's what I'm like. I really like the horror genre. I think you're kind of in the same
oh yeah,
boat with that as well. So there aren't many good like horror RPGs, in my opinion. There aren't many good ones,
there aren't many yet.
especially recently. I feel like it's been abandoned. But this one looks interesting. I like some of the enemy designs. It's done in that kind of like it's not isometric. What would you even call this? Kind of your Zelda.
That's isometric.
Yeah, there you
That's
go. Isometric.
Even Zelda would be isometric.
There you go. So I don't know. It definitely gives you that Stranger Things vibes. It looks like it's from like maybe they're in the 80s or early 90s or something, set in that
Yeah.
time period. But it reminded me of a game in the NES era. I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. It just reminded me of it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally it almost like the street brawler games, not
Yeah.
street brawler, but what was it, like Fatal Fury and Streets of Rage, kind of like those, but not those because it's also like playing different. It's like those games along with like what you typically get in the 90s, because
Mm-hmm.
what this initially looked like is something that you'd get like a point and click adventure.
Yep. Was it?
I,
Is it
I
out of
got those
this?
vibes.
Is it out of this world? I'm thinking of. I gotta look this up now. Out of this world. It's just this. It was totally bothering me. I'm like, what is it?
And the game also has co-op, by the way.
Does it really?
It has co-op, yeah.
That is pretty cool.
I mean, this game has a. I'm kind of excited for it. Like, I definitely want to try this game because it's just weird. It's
Yeah.
just weird looking. It's interesting. It's got the co-op. It's an action RPG
Hmm.
and it's horror.
The
Ooh,
game it reminded me of is actually Out of This World. Now, Out of This World does not play like this, like Kingdom of Night at all. It's just that it's kind of maybe like the same color palette. I think maybe that's what really kind of made that connection. Yeah, Out of This World is again doesn't play like that at all. Um, so yeah, Kingdom of Night. It says 2021, so sometime next year. Definitely keep an eye on it. Check it out. I'm not sure if it was out on anything else. It doesn't say. I don't think it's been out on anything else, like Steam or anything. All right, cool. I'll let you talk about this next game. I really didn't really even want to talk about it, but
that I don't know why you wouldn't want to talk about it. Are you serious? Like, mention that. I don't know if you're teasing me
no, no, no.
or
I am certainly am teasing you, and I understand. I think my issue is that I'm never into this game, and but I do understand the gravity of the game. I understand that it's a
okay.
big announcement. I certainly understand that. It was just never. It was just a me. It's just a me thing. That's all it is.
Okay, so let me just read the little blurb that my Nintendo News has. Is Neo, The World Ends With You, coming to Nintendo Switch in summer 2021. Square Enix has confirmed this afternoon that a follow-up to the much-loved, emphasis, much-loved,
Much
The World
love.
Ends With You, titled Neo, The World Ends With You, is coming to Nintendo Switch worldwide in summer 2021. The company provided some details about the brand new Tuwubu, Tuwui,
What?
Tu- Tui, Tui, whatever the abbreviation for The World Ends With You. Game including a fresh trailer. Read on below. So here's some little blurby stuff from Square. The World Ends With You. Neo, The World Ends With You transports players to the streets of Shibuya, where they will take part in the Reaper's game for a life or death battle for survival. Players will take on the role of Rindo as they explore the heart of Tokyo to uncover the mysteries behind a sinister game in which they have been forced to take part. Neo, The World Ends With You brings a recreation of modern Shibuya to life in a unique comic inspired style. Players can explore and enjoy the sights, sounds, and cultures of this bustling city, fight monsters alongside their ally companions in fast-paced action battles, and complete missions as they seek to change the fate they've been handed. A new trailer unveiled today provides a first look at the title, showcasing the hip visual direction, 3D environments, gameplay, and battle sequences, and amped up soundtrack underscoring the game's eye catching art style. The trailer can be viewed on the YouTubes and stuff. So that this kind of came I guess it kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't think that Square would actually relive this franchise. Like they would give it a second wind.
Well, yeah, because I mean, well, they did have The World Ends With You on the Switch. I don't know if it was a great port or not.
It was so the game that was a second hand port because the game came out on DS and it is phenomenal on DS. The original game, that's where it's intended to play because it actually required the user to use the stylus in order to
Hmm.
do pretty much most of the stuff that's happening in the game. You have to actually grip the game from it's been a while since I've played and beat that game. I think you have to move your character and do certain things while having your left hand holding onto the controller and using the D-pad, and I think the L button maybe for some stuff. And then you have to use the stylus to do draw in certain manners like slashing or tapping or circling in order to do certain attacks and abilities and stuff like that for the combat stuff.
Hmm.
And that was integral to how you play the game. There was a lot of touch stuff they had to do because that was the whole thing that the DS was about, was touching is good, and you had to use that stylus for stuff, and it was good. Like the game played really good. It was a different way of doing action combat. Instead of hitting buttons, you're doing various
They
stylus
they took
type of.
advantage of the hardware.
They took advantage of that hardware specifically, and
Hmm.
then they ported that game to iOS. And yes, it's kind of similar. Oh, not only did it do that, but it also did the two screen stuff.
Right, right, right.
And from what I remember, your character was on the bottom screen battling stuff, and your partner, whichever person that you were partnering with, they would be on the top part of the screen. I think that's how it worked. Oh man, it's been so long. But they did a two-screen thing. So not only was it taking advantage of the stylus, it was also taking advantage of the dual screen setup to
Hmm.
do different stuff. I think it was something along the lines of like you had to watch stuff that was happening on the top screen, or maybe at some points like the enemies that you attack could be on the top screen or on the bottom screen, and you had to it's weird. I forgot how it actually played out, but I do know that the two screen nature of it was also a factor. And then they ported that experience over to the iOS. It did pretty good. I'd never played it because I already played and beat it on DS, so I never got the iOS one. And then they brought it over to Switch, which was a port of the iOS game. So, as I said, second-hand port, it's not going to translate very well. And then they incorporated motion controls instead of. They still have the touch controls. We have to play the Switch portably, and when you're playing on dock, you have to do the motion control stuff, and that's not going to work.
Right.
That's not the same at all.
I mean, I'm just looking at the Metacritic here, and it was also 2D, so this is like a whole new thing we got going on here. So the Metacritic is at 77, which isn't bad. This is for the Switch port,
Right.
so
Yeah, exactly. Because the original game, if you look at the Metacritic score for the original game, it's probably in the upper eights, if not the low nines. That's how good it was.
yeah.
Not just good, just absolutely amazing. It was a one of a kind Square Enix RPG that doesn't. Sometimes Square Enix does come out with a lot of unique RPGs, but not all of them stick or land with such a good emphasis.
Hmm.
Sometimes they'll like hammer in a series over and over again until it finally starts to click. But with The World Ends with You, it was lightning in a bottle. They nailed it first shot. The game was phenomenal. It was probably one of the best RPGs on the DS.
Right.
Just amazing stuff, and it did unique stuff. Right, it took place in a contemporary time period. You're in Shibuya, Japan, and you had weird, quirky stuff where you had to like eat food, and the food that you ate would augment your permanent stats. And the clothes that you wear is your equipment, but the clothes you wear have brands, and certain brands could come into fashion and be the hot item for that time frame, and that could change as you're playing through the game where you're wearing the whatever the brand is, the pink llama brand. Oh, that's so yesterday. That's not the hot thing now it's the black picture brand,
Whatever it is, yeah.
whatever. And you have to like worry about which type of brand of clothes. And sometimes you can wear a brand of clothes that then makes it, if you do well enough in it, it can actually come into style. And so you can like augment that type of stuff along with it. No, it was just weird stuff like that. The story was it's not like a great story, but it's an interesting story. It's unique in that you're playing as people that are dead, and this whole game that you're playing is in order to get a second chance at life.
Oh,
And you're
okay.
you're playing against other people that are also trying to get a second chance at life. So it's kind of like the Hunger Games, but you're already dead, and you're
Oh,
you're just like competing against it. Now it's not a direct conflict that's actually occurring. It's not like the Hunger Games where it's like everyone against everyone kind of thing.
sure, sure, sure.
That nature of it plays out through the story where you're having discussions and sometimes battles with various people, um, as you normally would in a JRPG type of setting.
Gotcha.
So uh,
I will say that though, this new rendition of The World Ends with You does look appeals to me more than the DS version or the iOS or the Switch, whatever you want to say, that version of it.
it
So,
is fundamentally different.
right.
Uh, just the fact that it's 3D, it looks like you're going to be able to explore the Shibuya world in 3D with control of the camera, third person, fairly behind your back shoulder type of thing, and that also takes into place in the combat system where it's not a side scroll kind of brawler like Streets of Rage. Actually, that's kind of how the original kind of perspective wise how it looked. It's not that. This is a 3D, probably a 3D arena. Maybe it's part of the environment.
Yep.
Maybe you don't teleport to a battleground. Maybe you do.
Right.
That part I don't know. But you're free roaming. That environment looks like there's a lock on system,
Right.
and certainly. Uh, I strongly doubt that there is a stylus of sorts. There are icons on the very bottom that are the. I'm guessing it's the badges. No, not badges. What are they called? They might be called badges. Badges or like pogs. They're almost like I thought of them as pogs. They're like weird. Let's call them badges. They might have been called
That
badges.
sounds better. Yeah.
Yeah. Or medallions or medals or whatever badges, and you would the way the combat side of the game is you could equip badges, and these badges could be passives, they could be activatables, they would be an attack. The badge itself would be the attack, and you can kind of swap out which badges you have equipped on your character, and that would change your loadout, your build for the character. Uh, and change your attack style and the damage types that you do, the elemental damage types and whatnot. So that changed a whole lot of stuff. And it looks like they have those badges on the very bottom of the screen for the combat. So they got that in there. You're not tapping on them. You're not swiping. I don't see any like swipey movie type things. It looks like it's all button activated. It looks like
Yeah.
some of them have cooldowns on them as they did on the original game. So it looks like it's a combination of what you would expect for a game that isn't going to rely on a stylus. Also, wow, look at this world. Like look at how many characters they have drawn. Now, they're not the best looking
But
NPCs.
they don't need to be though, right?
There's so many of them.
Right. The world looks and feels lived in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, this one
Pins, that's what they called them. They called
pin.
them pins.
All right, like buttons, pins, that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pins.
yeah, yeah. This one looks more interesting. I'm gonna be honest than the others. So I may be in on this. Maybe I'm in. I'm not in the Twooey. I guess we'll call it fan club
Yep.
because I don't like that one. But this one just looks like just appeals to me more.
The other big thing about it is that the game had a fantastic soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Uh, it was just a very unique soundtrack too. It was also like very J-poppy, but it was like well executed and not cringy J-pop. It was like good. It was like what you wanted.
Okay, not like Xenoblade Chronicles X, J-Poppy.
Good J-pop.
Oh man. All right, that is what is been announced since we last talked to you. Now we got some quick. We're gonna hit these real quick. We got some upcoming RPGs for the next week. Today is December 12th. We have Outbreak. I think we discussed the last time, as well as Morbid, the Seven Acolytes we discussed the last time. Let's just jump to Fire Emblem Shadow of Dragon and the Blade of Light, the longest name of a video game ever. So this is I think this is just a straight port of the original Fire Emblem. That was, well, it's
Yep,
been translated and brought over from Japan.
the original, very first Fire Emblem in the series. Yep.
Yeah. Well, you actually know well, you figure out who Marth is. That Fire Emblem.
Yeah. The one that never released here until it got remade on the Game Boy Advance.
There you go. So that is, I lost my page here. So that is December 4th. Then we have Monster Sanctuary. Yeah, Monster Sanctuary. Is that the Pokemon inspired game there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's inspired by Pokemon, but it looks to be a kind of like a platformer side scroller type of deal. So I think what happens is you collect monsters. Let's read this description real quick. Description. Monster taming meets Metroidvania. Collect, train, and battle monsters in a lovely side view pixel world. Choose your spectral familiar and follow in your ancestors' footsteps to become a monster keeper and save the monster sanctuary. So kind of cool. You kind of traverse this platforming world. I'm not sure how the Metroidvania things work. Maybe you need certain monsters to get to certain areas. The powers of your monsters will allow you to explore. There you go. I'm reading it now. The powers of your monsters will allow you to explore and expand the world, cut down vines, smash down walls, and glide over gaps, all with the help of your monsters. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. I I do want to say if anyone's thinking about getting a Fire Emblem, game, I would say don't, and instead get the remake. It's fundamentally better. The original Fire Emblem game is old and has old things that aren't fun.
Wait, say that again? What do you mean? This original we just talked about?
Yeah.
You
Because
said
this is a port of the original, and that original Fire Emblem game, the first one with Marth, that got remade. That's the Shadow Dragon one that released on Game Boy Advance. So
right.
if you want that storyline, get it in the better experience, which is the Game Boy Advance version, which did come here to the States.
Yeah.
Uh, Otherwise, I mean, if you just want to have it because it is a weird oddity that Nintendo is finally porting an NES game from 30 years ago on over, 30 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So if you want to get it for that reason, then by all means go for it.
I
But
mean, it's not like it's breaking the bank either. It's $5.99, so it's not
yeah,
not too bad.
just temper your expectations. You're not going to get a very fun, awesome game.
And I think that's all I'm gonna mention today. If you want to know what's upcoming on the Nintendo Switch for any genre, or RPG genre, head over to Deku Deals. That's essentially where we get a lot of our release information
Have you, by
for
the
the
way,
upcoming week.
have you looked at this Monster Sanctuary game?
Yes, why?
It looks good.
That's what I said. Where have you been?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm looking at it now.
You were in Fire Emblem Land.
I was. I was in fire. I was also pulling up the video for Monster Sanctuary
Okay,
because it said Metroidvania. I'm like, okay, Metroidvania. I'm already on board.
you're halfway
And now
there.
yeah, I'm there. It's not an action game though. This is
Hmm.
a turn-based RPG, and you're having your monsters fight for you. They are the party members. It doesn't look like the main character does anything. It looks like kind
He's
of looks
kind
like
of like Ash Ketchum,
monsters.
just doesn't do
Yeah,
anything.
he's in the background saying, "I choose you," and
You go fight my battles.
so turn-based combat, and then once you're out of combat, you're exploring Metroidvania style. So
Rated E10 for ages 10.
it's interesting because it's an RPG that's side scroll, and typically those side scroll RPGs are action oriented,
Yep.
but this one's turn based. That's
Yeah.
very unique. I don't think I've seen that done very often.
For a turn based, no.
Yeah, typically it's like Metroidvania, like a Castlevania game that's action combat, right?
Hmm.
Or some sort of actiony roguelike type of game.
Right. Yeah, and there's all like it's I'm looking at this leveling system. It looks really kind of involved.
Yeah,
I think this might do really well. Like
yeah,
you can breed the monsters and everything. Interesting.
it's yeah, very very fascinating. And they had this bird phoenix, flaming bird phoenix thing,
Rated
pigeon,
E10.
and I guess you could like grab onto its legs, and it can like give you like a little bit of a extra hover height when you jump.
Right. I'll read the description again, Johnny.
You don't,
Where did I read this? Explore a Metroidvania-inspired world. The powers of your monsters will allow you to explore and expand the world, cut down vines, smash down walls, and glide over gaps, all with the help of your monsters. Assemble your team, hatch, collect, and train monsters from across the world, and build your team. Every monster has a unique skill tree to allow you to customize and tailor your party. And it's 3v3 combat. And you're not necessarily fighting like in Pokemon, you're fighting other Pokemon. Like I'm just looking at a screenshot here. It looks like you have 3 of your own monsters. Okay, potentially even more. I'm seeing 6, but maybe there's something else, some sort of different battle going on. But you're fighting against like goblins and whatnot. So it's not like you're fighting the same other monsters. So it's a little bit different
yeah.
in that aspect.
Yeah, they got. It looks like they have a pretty good range of different monstery type stuff. The
Hmm.
combat though, man, it looks like the combat takes a while.
And I'm really surprised you haven't gone to Steam to look at some of the reviews. It looks like it's reviewing really well on Steam. It's
Don't
been
don't
it
tell me with good time. I'm doing that right now.
it's been released on Steam. It says release date August 28, 2019. And it's still in early access? Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yeah, still in early access, so it's probably going to get a full release. Oh wow, yeah, it's actually scoring really well with the users. I'm gonna have to pay attention to this game.
Pay attention, Johnny. Pay
I'm
attention.
watching. I'm watching it.
And pay attention when I start talking about the games, so I don't have to repeat the whole dang thing.
I was.
You remind me of my high school days. All right, so now we're over an hour here. We're getting into the news.
Ooh.
Let's quickly go over these news. Game Awards 2020 Player's Voice is now open. The voting is now open, which now includes Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition and Hyrule Warriors. So these weren't included in any other categories, and I'm trying to look at the list. All right, so the full list of titles in the player's voice is as follows: we have Ori, The Will of the Wisps, Last of Us, Miles Morales, Ghost of Tsushima, Valhalla, FF7 Remake, Hades, Doom Eternal, Fortnite. Fortnite, get that out of here. Among
Yep.
Us, get that out of here. Oh, there's a
Well, Among
lot.
Us came out this year, right?
Yeah, I understand that, but that's like these are fad type of games. Maybe not Fortnite, but like Among Us. I mean, really? Come on.
Well, Fortnite's old, so that should not be on here.
Yeah, no. Fortnite should not, but it's had like stupid expansions and stuff like that that people are playing. Then you have Valorant, League of Legends, Half-Life Alyx, Animal Crossings. May put may do something. Fall Guys is another one of those fad games. Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Genshin Impact, Minecraft Dungeons. Holy cow! I'm really surprised. That's one I'm really surprised on. Crash Bandicoot 4, Phasmophobia.
Really? Uh,
I don't know what that is. Star Wars Squadrons. I didn't think that reviewed well, but maybe it did. Persona 5 Royal. Oh, another. Let's do Persona 5 all over again. Bug Snacks, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Demon Souls. That like just came out too. Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And last but not least, Free Fire and 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim.
yeah, 13 Sentinels gets
So
my vote.
13 Sentinels gets your vote? Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would want Xenoblade to get it, it's something that's already been out.
Yep.
So out of all these games, I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Sorry, no, that ending was terrible.
Yeah, when you're trying to do an episodic thing, it's gonna be tough.
I mean, honestly, Hades is kind of like the no-brainer one.
Yeah, but they're
Demon
already in
Souls,
there. Yeah.
already.
I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I was gonna say Demon Souls, if it didn't already come out, if it was like the first time we get to
Yeah.
experience Demon Souls, then I'd be like, definitely that. But it's gonna be Hades, and then after Hades, 13 Sentinels. So I'm thinking of like unique experiences that of games that came out this year. Now I know Hades was in early access late last year, but 13 Sentinels and Hades. And Hades is definitely the best game that came out this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd have to agree with Hades. That one. I don't know. That one might win it all, but it's tough because it is indie, right? But it's a really good fun game. So
It's such a well done game.
yeah.
Well done across the board.
But my
I am
vote's
a,
go ahead.
I am a little bit disappointed on the music in Hades. It's not bad.
Really?
It's just coming from the music in Pyre. I was
Mm-hmm.
expecting more from Hades because Pyre, the music was top notch across the board,
Yeah.
just great stuff. And Hades has fine music, but Pyre like escalated. There were moments, musical moments in that game,
Well, it
over
felt
and over.
like cinematic, almost.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know.
really.
I don't recall if Hades has like a music player mode. But if it does, I think you should probably go back and listen to it and
It
just to kind of isolate the music because it is done really well.
has an NPC dedicated
Oh,
to music.
that's right. Is it
I forgot the oh,
oh, f-
was it
oh
Oberon or
something? No. Anyway, yeah,
yeah.
you're right though. It does have that, but there might be something out of game that has it as well. But yeah, Hades will probably get my vote as well. All right,
Yeah.
so Atlas says it's working on resolving technical issues in SMT3 Nocturne HD remaster. So there's some issues there. So this is on My Nintendo News. The long-awaited remaster of SMT Nocturne HD finally launched on the Nintendo Switch recently in Japan, but there have been complaints from the Japanese consumers that the game is a bit of a technical mess. That's not good. Atlas has taken to its blog to announce that they are working hard on resolving issues that players have faced, including bugs, glitches, frame rate issues. This means that things should be fixed by the time SMT3 Nocturne HD Remaster launches in the West. So great. They're beta testers, and we'll just get that nice
We'll get
finished
the polished
product.
product. Yeah. That's good news. I mean, it's bad that they released it buggy, but the
Yeah.
fact that they put that blog out there saying, "Hey, we're gonna fix this," that's good news because by the time we get it, as they said, hopefully it's resolved.
Smooth. And I'm just looking at the comments again. My Nintendo News. All right, so Japan are the guinea pigs for this game. Joking aside, they rarely release games in a broken mess and are now one of the few companies that do make quality games with a bunch of content and making DLCs as extra. Basically, they aren't Bethesda, Activision, Ubisoft, and especially they aren't EA.
Yep. Want me to get the next one?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so I'm just gonna quickly headline this. No plans at the moment. That's the quote. To bring the original Monster Hunter Stories game to the Nintendo Switch, says Capcom, because they had their little financial stuff ongoing. That's like leftover comment stuff. So maybe it's not gonna come over. Maybe it will. I
Yeah.
doubt it.
Well, I mean, if Monster Hunter Stories does well, or if Monster Hunter Stories 2 does well, there's a potential for the first one to come
I
on over.
They're not going to do it. I think they learned their lesson with Monster Hunter because Monster Hunter Stories is a 3DS game.
It's not even a good looking 3DS game.
Exactly. So there's no way they're going to bring that over because it's going to be night and day. Like they're
Yeah.
going to have Stories 2 come out. People are going to play that. They're like, "Oh, wow, now I want to play Stories 1." And then Capcom brings that out and then people look at it at the box art and in the images and they're like, "This looks terrible. I'm not going to buy this." And
Unless
Capcom,
unless they remaster or, remake it. Which
that's a different story. But
yeah.
a port is not going to happen.
No.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. What do we got next?
Something for you.
Something for me. All right. The Witcher 3 on Nintendo Switch was a good revenue driver and performed really, really well. So yeah, I mean, this is goes without saying, but what does this mean for the future? I don't know, man. I mean, CD Projekt Red tends to put all their stuff on these higher performing consoles. I don't know that we're gonna see, for example, like Cyberpunk 2077. This iteration of the Switch definitely not coming. But we did have other support, like we had Thronebreaker from CD Projekt Red. So we're getting some stuff there, but
Oh, it's
yeah,
coming.
you think what's coming?
Cyberpunk.
No, no way.
Full bells and whistles.
Unless maybe a cloud version could help that.
Exactly, Cloud.
But man,
They did it with Control. They
they
did it
did.
with a bunch of other games,
Now,
Resident Evil, Assassin's Creed.
you played Control,
I played the tech demo
the
thing. Yeah.
tech demo. How did it look handle? I wouldn't even
It
know.
looked good. It looked pretty good. It has a little bit of that compression kind of blurriness that's in there that you typically get when you're streaming anything. Uh, it had a little bit of that, a little bit of input lag, but for the most part, it was serviceable and playable. It depends on the game, right? If it's action intensive and requires quick responses, which there is some shooting elements that you eventually get into in Control.
Yep.
It can kind of detract from that a little bit. So maybe it depends on the game. If it's something that you need to be really responsible, if it's a first person shooter, it ain't happening.
Right.
But if it's a third person action game, if there's difficulty options, maybe drop down the difficulty by a notch just to accommodate for the input lag. Hopefully, I mean, the input it's kind of hard to notice it unless you're paying attention to it. If you're paying attention to it, you'll definitely notice.
Sure.
But
So
that was
yeah.
my
Okay. Yeah, and and your mileage will always vary on something like that, right? It's going to
yeah.
depend on
But
your connection.
frame rate wise, it ran fine. Like there was no stuttering on the video feed.
Okay. All right, Dead Cells news. Dead Cell sales are over 3.5 million. DLC launches in early 2021. I'm so surprised that they're continue to support this project here. So Motion Twin, the developer behind the critically acclaimed Dead Cells, have announced today that they've shifted over 3.5 million copies of the rogue-like action platformer. Looks like the DLC titled Fatal Falls will be coming early 2021. It contains another 2 levels and a boss, plus new weapons, enemies to play with. It will cost you $5. Not
That's
bad.
yeah. That's a really good price. 3.5 million copies is insane. Absolutely insane for an indie developer. That is major success. Like
Yeah,
kudos to them. They hit it out the park with that.
yeah. And it's not 3.5 million copies on the Switch. I think it's just collectively, right?
Yeah, collectively. Yep.
Yeah, which is still phenomenal, right?
Absolutely phenomenal. Like just hitting what was it? There was a game that we're gonna get into later on that hit 500K, and that
Mm.
was a major success.
Right,
Three
right.
and a half million is insane.
Well, I think again in terms of what we're going to discuss with the other game, there's definitely a niche when it comes to, say, for example, Dead Cells and the other game. So you definitely is a niche crowd. So y-
Dead Cells is pretty niche. It's a roguelike that is sprite graphics, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess you're right. But yeah, 3.5 million is absolutely insane. Now, what else do they got? What else does Motion Twin have? When are they going to move from that project? Never.
I am hoping that they've been working on their next project
Yep.
while still supporting Dead Cells.
Yep.
But you know what? If they're continuing to support it because it's by their continued support, it's getting all these additional sales. Like
Hmm.
who knows if they didn't continue to support it, maybe it only would have gotten 1 million in sales,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So
That's true. All right, cool. Saga Frontier getting an HD remaster with exciting new content in 2021. This was kind of a big news for some folks out there. Square Enix, being on a hot streak when it comes to remastering their older games, has announced Saga Frontier remastered for the PS4 and for PS4, Nintendo Switch, Windows PC, iOS, and Android. Those last two are always what scares me. Um, but let me go on further. This is an enhanced re release of the 1997 PS1 classic with a shiny shiny HD visuals and even brand new content, and it will launch worldwide summer 2021. Is this something that you've played at all?
no, I
No.
haven't played any of it. You know what I do like? I like the concept art of the characters, the sort of 80s, 90s style anime
Yep.
concept art of them. The in-game visuals is it's all right. It actually does look serviceable. Like I could totally play it. I can. It's that kind of pre-rendered, modeled in 3D programs of the 90s
Yeah.
and pre-rendered, and I could totally get behind that. So I mean that last little bit in the trailer is that big giant turtle with chains on it. Uh, it just looks so silly and ridiculous, but I'm totally on board. I have no clue about this franchise and whether it's going to be good and worthwhile.
Right.
So
That turtle is actually Blastoise because he's got like cannons on him and everything. So You'll want to watch out for that hydro pump move. Uh, yeah, so it's got a bunch of quality of life stuff, all that modern sensibility. But yeah, cool. Definitely I know there's definitely a lot of people that are excited for that one. All right, Sakuna of Rice and Ruin yields a harvest of 500,000 copies sold worldwide. Now, this is an Exceed product or Marvelous product. I'm not sure what they are at this point.
Yep.
The rice harvest has been very abundant for developer Edelweiss and publisher Exceed Games, releasing only in the last few weeks across Japan, North America, and Europe. Sakuna of Rice and Ruin has already sold over 500,000 copies worldwide. These numbers include digital sales along with sell-in figures. I'm not sure what that is. Because I didn't think they would do a physical version of this. Maybe they are. But anyway, yeah, this is we were alluding to this, right? This is the other niche game that we're talking about. So it's only been
Yep.
out for a few weeks, less than a month, and it's sold quite a number of copies. And it's reviewed really well. So yeah, you gotta make a good game to sell that many copies. That just goes without saying.
Yeah, and they went on record saying that they're working on a patch to spruce up some of the technical performance issues of the game,
Good.
so it will either run better, look better, or both.
Yeah, it'll be improved upon. So yeah, like I had mentioned, it's reviewed really well. I might actually want to take part in this game at some point, even though I don't like farming games. I think this is a little more involved in that. I got to look into it a little bit more. But yeah, very very cool.
It's side scroll action RPG combat, which is always a fun, tried and true
Mm-hmm.
gameplay mechanic.
Mm-hmm. I played a very early version of the game. It didn't really sell, didn't really sell it to me. So, Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity shipped over 3 million copies worldwide. The Breath of the Wild effect on this
It's
is,
real.
is real. It's unbelievable.
It's also hitting during the holidays,
Yeah,
and
but I
and
think
it's
people are playing this before the holidays. You know
oh
what I
yeah.
mean? These aren't just all Christmas gifts.
No, absolutely not. I mean, this is going to by the end of the year, it's probably going to hit 6 million or more,
Yeah,
maybe even get close to 10 million.
right.
This is going to be like the best-selling Warriors Musu game.
It has to be now at this point. I mean, we'd have to dive into it, but this has got to be like up there.
It's yeah.
It's insane. And like I said, it's also I think Nintendo obviously had a major part in it, so that has a lot to do with it too. So yeah, it's a great game. The narrative is really where it hits it out of the park. The warrior style combat is still there, but you know it's good. Even the side missions are interesting. Granted, yeah, the combat is the combat, but it tells a story, and it actually all the side missions are where your progression actually is. If you don't do any of the side missions, your character won't be that strong. So you're almost in a way have to do a lot of the side stuff.
Yeah. And I like that aspect of that overworld map and sort of having some nuanced decision making they have to do
Yeah,
regarding where you need to go next and what missions you need to take on next and all that.
right.
So
So
it
and like I said, it's reviewed really really well.
yeah, on Metacritic, it's got 86 critic reviews at this time, and it averages a 78. So it's on the high end of good.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only major issue that the game has across the board is the performance of the game,
Yeah,
where the frame rate definitely dived.
yeah, there's some minor technical things, but as I've mentioned before, I'm not really a frame rate snob.
Mm.
So it really didn't bother me. I noticed it, but it didn't really affect the gameplay. I understood why it was happening. There are like a million things going on. There's a lot of enemies all in one time. I think even like the, you know, even the next gen consoles experience that as well. So I mean, I don't know. It didn't really bother me,
Uh,
to be honest with you. But we have here another article, My Nintendo News. Nintendo says Hyrule Warriors isn't expected to become its own series after Age of Calamity. And I really hope it doesn't. I hope this is a kind of a one off project. I really don't want to see Zelda presented in this way, meaning like a Warriors style game.
you know where I would be okay with is if they like Smash Brothers style the Warriors with Nintendo though. So it's Warriors, but it's not just Zelda. It's all the Nintendo characters. A big slew of Nintendo characters.
If
They
they
get to
could if they could fit it into some wacky world, or like
yeah,
story
yeah.
wise, maybe. Like I don't want to see Mario and Luigi I don't know, out there, and Bowser.
Mario, Luigi, Bowser. You get Captain Falcon, Samus. They're all out there. Yoshi's out there. They're
I
having a
don't
blast.
know.
Kirby is the most powerful one. Maybe Kirby's an unlockable. When you beat the game, you get the best character.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I think I've had my fill in Warriors games. That's my thing. Like I think the actual story lends itself to what the combat actually is. It's like a lot of like stuff going on, a lot of war going on, so it works out well. I don't want to see Zelda, like you kind of alluding to. I don't want to see Zelda involved in this at all. Now, if you want your smash 'em up warriors or whatever you want to call it, I don't know. I don't think you can make sense of a good story like that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally with you. What they need to do with the Warriors franchise is, I mean, this Age of Calamity one has definitely upped uh, its ambition. They need to like really the next iteration, whatever it is, they need to like really
Learn from it.
reimagine it. Yeah, learn from this and really up its ante on what this franchise is capable of.
Right. Now
Change it
don't
up.
don't get me wrong, like the Breath of the Wild effect is what's happening here. But
Yeah.
again, the whole reason is because it tells the great story. And if you can tell a good story in a Warriors game, maybe that's your secret. That's your, recipe for success there, is that really good narrative.
Let's not say that the Breath of the Wild story is the best thing since sliced bread. I mean,
No, what I'm saying is that there's some cohesion here, like, right?
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that like it's a freaking masterpiece, but
it,
there's cohesion here.
it's a more thoroughly designed world because it's leveraging the efforts that were put in on Breath of the Wild. So
Right,
yeah,
right. It's fleshing it out more.
yeah.
All right,
But
yeah, yeah, really cool. What were you gonna say?
I thought we were going to go into Rumourland, but we have one last little thing. That's Immortals, Phoenix Rising. There's a whole lot of stuff out there. The game comes out in what, tomorrow, 2 days or
Tomorrow.
something like that.
Yeah, tomorrow.
So tomorrow, there's some places have done graphical comparisons between the PS5 version and the Switch version. It surprise, surprise, it looks really good on the PS5, and it kind of looks a little blurry on the Switch. But it looks all right. There's lots of fog use that they do into the distance, right? The if you don't mind not being able to see things very clearly that are way off into the distance, it'll be serviceable graphically,
Mm-hmm.
and the frame rate won't be running at 60. It's running at 30 sometimes. The frame rate is also a little inconsistent. And that's generally it. Other than those two things, you're getting the full blown Immortals Phoenix Rising experience on the Switch. It just won't look or run as well as the PS5 version. But
This is
the review scores are out, and they're kind of reviewing roughly right around the same range.
that's
I think
good.
the PS5 version is maybe like 1 or 2 or 3% higher.
Okay.
That's it.
No, actually pretty good. I'm kind of surprised. I really didn't know what to expect out of this, to be honest with you. But I will be getting it. I will be playing it. Hopefully, I can put a lot of time into it because I want to finish Age of Calamity. But yeah, it doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Rumorland. What are we doing here with Rumorland? Pokemon 20. What's that?
This isn't really a rumor because the Pokemon Company did reveal this 20 Pokemon 25th anniversary logo thing to fans. So all they said was, hey, stay tuned for more details when we celebrate the 25th year of Pokemon or anniversary of Pokemon in 2021. So next year is the year to celebrate Pokemon, the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. So something's going to happen then.
We're just going to celebrate Pokemon all year.
Well, I guess we could talk a little bit about that later, about predictive stuff, because we do have a question on that.
Sure, yeah, we can hold off. But yeah, they got something going on.
They got something planned, but they always have something planned with Pokemon, so
yeah.
It's not really a surprise.
Yeah, right. And actually, we can hit that question here. These are questions that come from the Nintendo Switch RPG fans Facebook group. I put in a post there, told them we were recording, and asked for questions, and we got 4 questions, guys. So let's hit on that one we were just talking about. So this is Mike Dioshberg. Ignoring leaks and rumors, what do you think Nintendo is going to release next year for Pokemon's 25th anniversary? What do you think?
Well, to clarify, it's not Nintendo, it's the Pokemon Company.
Sure.
They're going to do stuff.
Yes.
So what they're going to do, and this is, I am seeing into the crystal ball. This is going to be 100% fact. Pokemon Snap.
Well, yeah, they're already doing it. That's cheating.
So that's coming out next year. So we know that's happening.
Yeah.
I don't think they came out with a definitive date, but being that 25 years of Pokemon is going to be a big thing to celebrate. Releasing Pokemon Snap to coincide with that, because Pokemon Snap came out in the almost 25 years ago, so that kind of lines up real good with what was it? That was like a 1997 game, 98 game.
I don't know. Like yeah, on the N64, I have no idea.
Yeah, so that's going to be a thing. A game? I don't know, because they worked on the DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield this year. They were working on that DLC and last year.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to be able to have some bigger Pokemon game to release, I don't think it's going to happen. What might happen is potentially another remake, kind of like Hey You Pikachu. Is it Hey You? Not Hey You.
Let's go, Pokemon. Let's go.
Let's go. They might do another Let's Go, but for what was the one that came after?
Red and Blue.
No, what was after that?
Was that?
It like Fire, Leaf Green, and
Fire Red?
Fire Red and Leaf Green? Was that the one that came after that?
Oh, you're putting
Sapphire.
No, I'm not down.
Sapphire, or it might be Fire Red and Leaf Green. It was one of those. So they might do that. So they'll do a Let's Go Sapphire Red
version.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Red, not Sapphire Red. So that could be a thing. Also, they have been making Pokemon games that are just out there, right? There was that weird boxy QB one.
Yep.
With the Pokemon.
Pokemon Quest.
Quest, that's it. So they could do something weird like that as well. Oh, you know what? You know what they're definitely going to do? Actually, this lines up perfectly. All right, so you know what? It's going to be 2 games. And we know about them already because they've already announced them.
I'm not even writing this stuff down, but go ahead.
It's going to be Stadium, and it's going to be that League of Legends Pokemon game that they also announced.
League of Legends?
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot what it's called, but it's League of Legends, but with Pokemon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we commented on this, so that's it. I think it's going to be those 2 things, and maybe they'll do like an anime or something like that.
Pokemon Unite.
Unite. That's it. It's got.
Po-
What's the Pokemon Snap called?
I think it's called Pokemon Snap, or new Pokemon Snap.
New Pokemon Snap. So new Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Unite. That's what we're gonna get as a celebration. Everything else outside of that is a possibility, but we're going into like unlikelihood land. And I think
Yeah.
having just those two games, the Snap and the Unite, land for next year, both of them landing next year, that's a big deal. Those are
Wow,
two big games.
you went way into the Pokemon memory bank. Holy cow! I do remember talking about this, but
Yeah.
I'm surprised you remember it.
We talked about it this year, right?
This news was June 24, 2020.
Yeah. So it was this year. Just so many things happened this year.
Yeah, a lot of things happened. So yeah, Pokemon Company has teamed up with Tencent to create a 5v5 multiplayer online battle arena game called Pokemon Unite for the
Yep.
Switch and mobile devices.
I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. Those two
I
games
mean,
coming
yeah,
out,
it's happening.
and then maybe something. I don't think anything bigger than those two games are gonna come out next year.
Yeah, I'd have to agree because I mean they just came up with a major DLC package for the new Pokemon game. I can't even think of the name of it right now off the top of my head. Um, yeah, Pokemon Snap is definitely in our future, as long with Pokemon Unite, which you reminded me about.
I think the biggest thing that we could also get is another Let's Go, but that's a far fetched thing. I don't. That's unlikely to occur.
Yeah.
A thing that could occur is, and I think this is a stronger possibility, even though this is a little bit about out of left field, is another Pokemon Puzzle League.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that they're. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think they're coming out with another game other than the two that we've mentioned. I don't think they're gonna have another game
I
on
think they
them.
could with Pokemon Puzzle League.
Yeah.
It's a small enough game design that it could be feasible.
Okay. And that came out like 20 years ago. Now
Yeah,
because it is the 25th anniversary, could they also have like what is their anniversary? Is it off of the cards, or are we talking the anime itself or the
Pokemon Red and
games?
Blue, the game.
The game. Okay. Hmm. So they're gonna have to do something with that, right? I would think.
Well, how many times are they gonna like remake that game?
I don't
And
know, but that's the whole reason why we're discussing this. It's 25th anniversary. That was their initial thing was Pokemon Red and Green.
yeah, but it's more so 25 years
Sure.
of Pokemon.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what Nintendo just did for Mario 35. Right?
Yeah,
They
it was
celebrated it in multiple ways. They did the little Switch Online game. They did the Mario 3D games,
mhm.
the Galaxy and Sunshine and Mario
So
64 package.
so we have precedent here, right? Could
Yeah.
Pokemon do something similar? Will they have some sort of Super Mario 35 or
Oh,
whatever or
yeah,
something
they could do a
something like
bundle.
that?
Maybe they bundle some Pokemon games. Maybe like one of, and these would be ports, right?
Yeah.
So what they would do is they would probably take like a Pokemon game that released on the Game Boy Advance, maybe the Ruby Red Sapphire, whatever it's called, Red Leaf, Fire Leaf Green. Uh,
We'll never get it. It's fine. It's fine.
so maybe they take one of those or both of those, package that with some other weird Pokemon games like Pokemon Puzzle League and some
Mhm.
other stuff. Maybe they'll just do a bundle of like some legit Pokemon games along with, or Pokemon Stadium, for example, along
Sure.
with some other off Pokemon offshoots.
Yep. One thing's for sure, there's definitely going to be some Pokemon Go event. Without a doubt, they'll have something for that, right? And maybe some Pokemon kart racer. Who knows? Who knows? All right. Then we have a couple other questions. Go back to the questions that are very, very similar. We have Jonathan Pelletier, uh, as well as Elias Lutz. Um, Jonathan asks, would the Switch benefit more from ports of RPGs from the NES SNES era or focus more on modern releases? Elias also asked, since we are getting HD ports like Saga Frontier, which we've discussed, for example, what other franchises do you think would benefit most from the port treatment? So they kind of are asking similar questions, right? Would the Switch benefit more from ports of RPGs from the SNES or NES SNES era to focus more on modern releases? I say both.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I mean, if it's a port, you're not using a big team to make something new.
no, you're just fixing, any buggy issues that existed with the original game, and you're making it run via the Switch emulation model.
Yeah.
Done.
And and if it's the HD port, like Saga Frontier, it's going to be even better looking.
Yeah.
Typically, even better looking. I mean, it'll have it won't the visuals at the very least won't be as blurry.
Yeah, right, right. I think when you're talking NES and SNES era, you're talking pixel games anyways.
Yeah.
And those translate a little bit better than the PS1 era games. Because they were trying to do some new different stuff with 3D graphics basically. So the SNES pixel art is just always, or bit graphics, whatever you want to call it, is always just going to translate better to HD. So
Well,
should
uh,
pixel art should always translate better to HD.
it just it's always going to look the same. So it's not that it's
Yeah.
going to transition nicely in HD. It's you're just not going to lose any quality in image quality
Hmm.
because it just translates one to one.
Sure.
But it depends on how they scale things, right? Because then they'd have to scale things in a relatively perfect way so that there's no loss in pixel accuracy and
Yeah. Yeah, if you're changing aspect ratios, things like that, that's going to present a whole separate set of issues.
right. Yeah,
So,
if it's just a port where they're just bringing games over and not doing HD ports like Saga Frontier, so if it's just regular ports, just do them all the good ones at the very least. Like, there's what's the harm in that?
yeah,
It's
if
NES and SNES. That takes no effort whatsoever because we already got the emulation running.
right.
So just bring it.
Yeah,
Now, if it is HD ports, like like what they're doing Saga Frontier, which does require additional effort because that is the original artwork was not rendered at those higher HD resolutions.
mhm.
So they got to, at the very least, re-render the artwork at those higher levels, or have to recreate the art at higher resolutions. If it's sprite art, that's harder to do because you have to redraw it. If it's pre-rendered art, if you still have those pre-rendered 3D model assets, you can just re-render those same assets at the higher resolution to get the benefit, which is what it looks like they did with Saga Frontier.
Right.
And there are some SNES games that uh, that can get the benefit of that. For example, Super Mario RPG, those characters and world was modeled in 3D and then pre-rendered as sprites into the Super Nintendo.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Donkey Kong Country,
Mhm.
all of them, all three of them, same thing. Um,
Th-
there's a bunch of others that kind of had that modeled in 3D stuff.
Yeah,
So
there's definitely quite a few others. I can think of a fighting game that I used to love and play called Clay Fighter. That
Clay Fighter,
that did it. Yeah.
yeah. So for those types of games, it depends on if they still have access to those sort of 3D models are made available to them, so that they can re-render things at higher resolutions, or if they have if the original means by which they produced the artwork was at a higher resolution, and then they downgrade the resolution in order to work with the capabilities of the Super Nintendo. So it depends on that.
Mhm.
And I would say what they would need to do is just get good games, figure out the good games first, the best of the best, and then figure out whether it's worth the effort needed in order to do an HD port of it.
Right. Just finding those games always just seems like a problem. So let's address those games that we want. Elias Lutz says, what other franchises do you think would benefit from this port treatment? Obviously, Mario RPG, Super Mario RPG
Yeah.
would be our, first over our list, but I'm trying to think of some other ones that are in the same vein that maybe possibly use those um, 3D textures.
Yep.
That's the one that comes to mind, but I can't think of any other RPGs in that era that did that. I'm sure there
Yeah.
are.
So it's not NES or Super Nintendo, but the game I'm playing right now, Ogre Battle 64, is one of those games that did that same type of graphical assets. It's modeled in 3D,
Mm-hmm.
and then pre-rendered snapshots, sprites are created based on those 3D models. And you know, if they still have all of those 3D models and all that, oh man, that game would look incredible with HD as an HD remaster.
Right.
It would look absolutely incredible because the models are like it just has an art style that looks real good, and the world and how it was made actually looks pretty good.
Right.
The resolution's low, but everything that's there would work if rendered at a higher level. So that would definitely hold up. I think there's a lot of PlayStation games that could definitely benefit because that was also a technique that was done a lot in
In the PlayStation.
PlayStation games as
Yeah,
well.
definitely was.
Uh, I mean, there's been, for example, Resident Evil games. So the Resident Evil games hit the N64 as well,
Mm-hmm.
and on PlayStation. Those games did the pre-rendered 3D environment type stuff and 3D models. And then they did a mixture, right? Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy, actually all the Final Fantasies did the same thing where they modeled everything, pre-render modeled in 3D, and then they had the characters as actual in-game renderings, 3D modeled renderings. So it was like a combination of the two. So they did that for that. Hmm. I mean, there's a lot of games that would work, but we'd have to dabble into like the Sony side of things, or even the Sega Saturn side of things.
Yeah, I feel like that generation, because even like the N64 generation was a little bit later than the PS1, but there might be but there are very few N64 RPGs anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would mostly be like you had mentioned. Now, did Rare have anything to do with they? Yeah, Rare had a lot to do with that chip, didn't they? And
Uh,
Super Nintendo.
they utilized it, but it's the FX chip you're talking about, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep.
They utilized it, but it wasn't because of them. Because Nintendo, I mean, Nintendo, I think they were the first ones to really utilize it with Star Fox.
Right.
I think Star Fox was the driver for using that type of enhancement tech embedded into the cartridge.
Hmm.
They also had like stunt race effects. They had a couple of rare games, a couple of other offshoot games that use the Super Effects chip.
Yeah, it looks like Mario World 2 utilized it. Um, really not a
Oh
great.
yeah, Yoshi's Island. Yeah, that came after Star Fox.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, Star Fox I think was one of the initial ones, but this is really isn't.
Star Fox was '93, I think, maybe '94, but I think '93 came
Oh,
out.
here we go. I'm like, where is the list of games? Dirt Racer, Dirt Track, Star Fox, Stunt Race, Vortex, Doom, Mario World 2. Yeah, I'm not seeing Mario RPG on here. Interesting. Okay.
Well, Mario RPG didn't have to use it. So uh, part of that using that chip is it did sprite scaling and rotation. It better. It did it more in a more performant because it offloaded that type of processing from the console itself because it did it in the chip.
On the chip, yeah.
So and so not only did it allow for sort of 3D modeling, because when you're doing 3D modeling and you're rendering textures on polygons and stuff like that, you're doing a lot of stretching, skewing, scaling, and rotation of the texture itself. So it's all about calculating the perspective
Yep, yep.
that
I
the
was just gonna
texture is
say
being
that.
viewed at, and then blitting that texture onto the triangle, rectangle, whatever
Mhm.
that you want to shape it onto. So yeah, so that's I would say actually, Star Fox, right? That could get an HD port, right? Because it's that game is pretty much all in 3D.
Right. But
And if they were to HD port it, it wouldn't have the crazy aliasing issues that it has. And hopefully, the big thing that they need to do is up the frame rate, make it a 60 frame per second, smooth as silk,
butter,
running
butters.
smooth as butter. That and Star Fox 2. Star Fox 2 has like big issues with its frame rate type stuff.
I
So
don't know.
those two games.
I'd rather just have a recreation of Star Fox rather than porting over of that Star Fox 1 and 2.
Well, they kind of pretty much every Star Fox game is a recreation of Star Fox. I mean,
Right.
Star Fox 64 is pretty much the same story as Star Fox.
Yeah, I just don't think Star Fox looks good. I don't think it ever looked good.
No, no. Star Fox 64 looked awesome. That was one of the best looking games when it came out.
Yeah, no, Star Fox 64 looks good. I'm talking the OG Star Fox.
The OG was incredible looking because there was no other game that looked like that.
Bah.
That was like that that was mind blowing graphics at that time.
Oh, I understand that. It's just not not for me. Not for me at all.
So if I had to pick a game, so if we're in, what was the game you picked?
I didn't I
To get
didn't
the HD port treatment.
I didn't well, I said Mario RPG, but I mean that's just I think that should be on everyone's list.
Yeah, we're both on board with that. If I had to pick a game, I would say Tales of Fantasia.
Yeah.
Just give that an HD port.
I'm gonna have to agree because I'm on that bandwagon ever since you mentioned it and forced me to watch it. Um, you f- you
You like what you saw.
you forced me to watch it. But I think that's like a perfect pick. I'm gonna have to agree with that one as well. Can't believe you forced me. That was a weird time in our lives. Anyway, let's move on to the last question here. What is the most underrated RPG on the Switch right now, and why is it Dragon's Dogma? That's a quote. That's from him. Um, I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna agree with that assessment, right? I think Dragon's Dogma is an underrated RPG. When I see a lot of lists of people, oh, what? Because I peruse this list or this Facebook group a lot, and there are a lot of the same questions. All right. What do I play? I'm looking for an RPG. Dragon's Dogma is very rarely mentioned, and it is a really good game. I love the combat in it. I like the 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 art style is it's all right. It's a lot of green and brown, almost your Skyrim effect or Fallout 3 effect, where everything
Yep.
kind of just looks a little muddy. But I think overall, it's a really decent game. So I do agree with his assessment there. But we put together a very 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 short list of 3 games each that we would recommend that are possibly underrated. I'm just gonna go over my three, and then Johnny, you can go over yours. Number one being Battle Chasers Night War. This came out very early on the Switch. There is a little bit of a difficulty spike where it forces you to kind of grind to level up a little bit. But I love the animation. I love the music in this. I like the characters in it. So Battle Chasers Night War, SteamWorld Quest, Hand of Gilgamesh. This is Image Informs. I think this is their better RPG. It's kind of like it's not really deck building, but it's your card based RPG. Take a look at that if you're into the Steam World universe. And then Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark. You want to talk about Final Fantasy Tactics? This is probably the closest thing you're going to get to that on the Switch. And again, one of those very rarely mentioned games. I think I've kind of run the gamut of. Well, I didn't hit action RPG. Maybe you'll hit an action RPG, but anyway, Fell Seal is a strategy RPG, tactical RPG, really, really done well. Good story. I think there's DLC out for it as well. So yeah, Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark is my last
Yeah, and I
recommendation.
I played that as well. I'd second that recommendation. That is definitely a gem.
Mhm.
Uh, there's some kind of lowish budget things with the artwork that's in there. It's not bad art. It's just it's not the best, most appealing of art or animations that the characters have.
Hmm.
That's the only thing that's kind of holding it back. Everything else is like pretty solid. So just want to second that
Th-
recommendation.
thanks for seconding that.
Yeah. So my three, I'm just gonna very quickly mention Astral Chain. I know it's a big game and people are aware of it. I just wanted to re-mention that because man, that game is absolutely fantastic. All right, my actual three is Children of Morta, and we both agree like this game is really really good, and people have continued to kind of. It seems like people have overlooked it, and they really shouldn't. And it also has co-op,
Yeah.
so it's it's got pretty much everything you want. Beautiful sprite work in there. Really awesome way to tell the story. Just really good, solid stuff. Definitely check it out. And it's a indie game, so it's got that indie game budget going on, and it's usually on sale at some place
Hmm.
somewhere. And you can even get a physical, so that's a nice little perk. So here's another game. It's Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I think we both agree is kind of overlooked. Yes, it's a big game, but it's kind of overlooked. But I'm not recommending that one, even though I am recommending that one. What I'm actually recommending is the spin-off DLC, standalone DLC,
Hmm.
Torna: The Golden Country. And this definitely got overlooked because it kind of released out of nowhere ish, and it was kind of an offshoot thing, and people kind of missed on it. Don't miss on it. If you enjoyed any bit of Xenoblade 2, you're definitely going to enjoy Torna: The Golden Country. The story isn't as good, and that's the only thing that's holding it back. Is that the story is not as well told. There is a story there. It is a standalone story too, so you don't even need to play Xenoblade 2 in order to play Torn of the Golden Country. But the combat's better. Visually, the game looks and runs better than the original. It's
Hmm.
more performant. There's less blurriness in there. Just they tweaked everything. They like enhanced that engine, made everything better looking. The soundtrack's a little different. I'm not too big of a fan of the soundtrack on the second one because it's jazz, more jazz type of stuff, and I really don't like jazz, but it is good quality stuff. So I definitely recommend that. I think that's a hidden gem that people skipped out on because they thought, oh, it's just Xenoblade 2 again. It's not Xenoblade 2 again. Completely different characters, almost completely different storyline.
Right.
Takes place 500 years before Xenoblade 2.
Now I'm no mathematician, but that
Yep,
seems like a long time.
that is a long time.
Yeah. Okay.
And the last game that I think is definitely a hidden gem is Salt and Sanctuary. I
Oh.
really, really dig this game. It's really good. It's a Castlevania meets Dark Souls side scroll action RPG. It's the combat is much more heavier and nuanced and weighty, like you would get in Dark Souls. So it's very you have to be very precise and very tight with your input, and you have to pay attention to the tells of the enemies, just the typical stuff that you get in Dark Souls combat style game, Souls likes. And it also has this big 2D side scroll platforming world to explore like you would get in a Metroidvania style game. So it's like this nice union of the two things. It's very difficult. It's just a great game, fun boss fights, everything about it, just really good stuff. And if you can beat it, you'll definitely cheer and scream at the top of your lungs like I did because that last boss fight is really hard.
The first boss fight is really hard. I will tell you, this is the one of the last games that made me I don't rage quit often.
Yep.
This is the last one that made it. That did it for me. It is challenging. I think it's just the get good thing. I just needed to get better at the game. I didn't have the patience for it. The game just bothered me so much. So I just couldn't do it. There was a platforming section where there were just birds or bats or something dive bombing you. Done. I quit. Absolutely, just quit. Couldn't do it. Um, but if you're at all into them, and there are some Metroidvania aspects to it, as well as Souls-like aspects to it. It's uh, definitely a tough one. All right, cool. Hopefully, we'd answer all your questions here. If you do have any other questions, you can email us at podcast@switchrpg.com. I'll have to check with Ben to make sure that email address still exists. Because I'm gonna be honest, I don't get many email requests. Although I did actually get one recently. You and we'll talk about it later. Okay, it's a
Oh,
possible interview request. I think you're on board with what I'm
oh,
thinking.
yep.
Anyway, main topic: Switch RPG 2020 award nominees. Now we're just gonna go over all these. We changed the categories a little bit. We're not doing the tried and true typical stuff, so we did a little bit of different stuff. But let's go over best story first. Nominees are Hades, Bug Fables, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and Winamore Tactics Club, with an honorable mention of Operencia: The Stolen Sun.
Ah, yeah. I think all relatively solid picks. I haven't played Bug Fables or Wintermore, so I can't really attest to either of those. Although I don't see either of them having the more interesting story or even coming close to the story that's being told in both Hades and Xenoblade. Like those stories are incredible,
Yeah,
both of them. So uh, it's
I
gonna be one of either Hades or Xenoblade is definitely gonna win it. My prediction.
yeah, I'd have to pull up our Twitter account because we're also running a Twitter poll, which may be done by the time people get to listen to this.
Yep.
Let me see if I
Yeah,
can pull
and
this
a
up
nice
quick.
thing about the story of Hades versus the story of Xenoblade is that they are two very different sort of takes on storytelling. One's very personal, which is Hades, and one is gets very meta and gets very grand in scope, which is Xenoblade. So
Yeah. Yeah, that one I still need to get back into. I just couldn't get into the combat, but that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with best story. And on our Twitter, we have Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition at 40%. In second place, we have Wintermore Tactics Club. Um,
interesting.
yeah, Wintermore Tactics Club it is I haven't finished it, but it's a your tactics like your Final Fantasy tactics like um but on a simpler terms. That's the way the
Much
gameplay is.
much simpler. Yeah.
Yeah, much simpler. But the story is basically you're a young kid who's basically been picked on. So it kind of just and she creates all this stuff around her, in this fantasy like setting, and that's the story that's being told.
Yeah.
So
Escapism.
yeah, essentially. So there is a really good story there. But yeah, I'd agree with you in Xenoblade Chronicles where the story is much more grand, and Hades there is another more personal there story there, but they're all pretty good.
And both so Xenoblade it's emotional right at the start, and Hades it's also very emotional. I mean, the game is pretty much pure emotion
Yeah,
on its storytelling. So yeah,
yeah,
those are two juggernauts. Looks like the voting is leaning to Xenoblade, at least with fans.
yeah. There's only maybe about 10-12 hours left, so yeah, it's probably going to be Xenoblade. All right, next we have best combat, whether it be turn-based action or something in between. Whose combat system is best designed? Nominees are Hades, Bug Fables, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and Saga Scarlet Grace Ambitions. With an honorable mention to Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE Hardcore. Um,
Encore.
yeah, that's what I said, isn't it?
You said hardcore.
No, whatever. It's an
Sounds
honorable
like you
mention.
said
I thought I said encore, but maybe it's
you
just my
probably
accent. Anyway,
did.
this one on Twitter, what is heavily leaning towards Hades?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Hades is that's like the big thing that you're doing. Like 90% of the time on Hades is
Is combat?
combat,
Yeah,
and the combat is oh so good.
Yeah, I don't know if the combat does anything exceptional in Bug Fables. Honestly, I haven't played it. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is definitely doing something different there. I had a difficult time with the combat. Doesn't mean everybody else did. So that wouldn't have been my choice. But Scarlet Grace Ambitions, I'm not very familiar with. I know Ben at the site really loves this combat or thinks it's very distinctive. So I know that's where his vote was, but yeah, what are your thoughts? Yeah, you would say Hades,
I
right?
would, yeah, I would say Hades, and I really enjoy the combat of Xenoblade, so I would give the second to Xenoblade. And if Bug Fables is anything like Mario Thousand Year Door, like that would be a really good combat system. Now I don't see Scarlet Grace having it. I can certainly see it being an interesting combat system, but I don't see it coming even close to what Xenoblade or Hades has to offer. I
Yeah,
mean, if it has something that's it's similar to, it'd be more so Xenoblade, and even then, it's still very different. But like
yeah.
you know, Xenoblade is way more nuanced in the ask of what you're doing, whereas in Scarlet Grace, it's doing a unique take on a turn-based combat system.
On the menu, like the menu driven, right?
Yeah, the traditional menu-driven turn-based combat. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bug Fables is definitely playing on the Thousand Year Door aspect of things, where there's some like quick time events and some of the combat things of that nature. But it's definitely more, you know, more traditional when compared to some of the other stuff we have going on here.
Yeah.
All right, next we have best progression system, job systems, town building, and character advancement. Which progression system feels the most satisfying and unique? Nominees are Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Hades, Bug Fables. Have you noticed a trend yet? Rune Factory 4 Special. And we do have an honorable mention here. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it should be here because this should be for next year. Is Sakuna of Rice and Ruin?
Yeah, not enough time to assess that one.
Yeah, yeah. Not many people were, especially on our site, weren't able to play this. So I think this should be for next year. But either way, we have progression system on Twitter. It's um it's mostly going for Hades at 44%.
Yeah, I mean, Hades is it's a roguelike, so it best be about the progression system.
Yeah,
It
it
has,
relies on it, right?
yeah, it has an incredible. I mean, remember when we had that chat where I told you that there's a second ability in the mirror?
It blew my mind.
Yeah, I, like it took a while for me to realize that, and I have to tell you, and you didn't even realize it. And it's just even more options. I think the big thing with Hades, with its progression system, is the I guess the achievements. What were the what was it the fates that you complete,
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember exactly what they called though.
and so it gives you reasons long term, sort of making progress, not only in the story but also with your character, getting more things that allow you to unlock more stuff, to
Hmm.
do more stuff, to enhance your character, etc. So it's just a really tight feedback loop. Now, I would say Xenoblade is probably the most nuanced on the progression systems because you got gear, you got gems, you got you're leveling up, you're uh, specking your abilities for multiple characters. You're
Hmm.
leveling up those abilities for multiple characters. You got the skill trees. You can also do the affinity chart stuff. So there's like so many different ways. So it's got the complexity and the breadth um, of progression systems. So I can definitely see it going either way for Xenoblade or for Hades.
Yeah, it's right now it's leaning 44% to 31 going for Hades. So
Yeah,
it's leaning that way.
yeah. I wouldn't be upset either way.
All right, cool. Best side quests is the next category. Travel off the beaten path, talk to the locals, and decide which side quests are the most compelling and rewarding. Bug Fables, Crosscode, The Outer Worlds, and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. With an honorable mention to The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3, which unfortunately I didn't get to play because I feel like you need to play the first two, and that's a big ask for me.
Yep.
But Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition for side quests? Really?
Yeah, I don't see that happen. I mean, the side quests are, some of them can be okay, but yeah, no, that's definitely. I hope it doesn't win it because that's not the Xenoblade. That's not the big thing with Xenoblade.
Absolutely
Actually,
not, right?
the game that should win it is either going to be Bug Fables or more likely The Outer Worlds, because that's exactly what The Outer Worlds is about, is doing those side quests.
Right.
And
But
those
get
side quests are actually really good.
Yeah. And I've been really told that Crosscode has a really decent amount of side quests or decent side quests as well. Haven't been able to get it. I'm still waiting for my collector's edition. I feel like it's been an eternity since that's been a thing. Still waiting for it. But Twitter has it. Twitter has Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition winning at 44, almost 45%.
Oh, jeez.
I feel like that's just name recognition there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Because
That's wrong.
it definitely should not be winning. Second being Crosscode at 24%, then The Outer Worlds at 20. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think just the fact that Xenoblade is even in this category is wrong.
it's winning the popularity contest.
It definitely in this aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the biggest, one of the biggest fans of Xenoblade, and I don't definitely don't see a reason why it's in that category.
Well, they're the worst kind of. I mean, they're the worst kind of quests, right? They're all fetch quests.
They're not all of them, but I mean, they're some of them can be more multi-step and nuanced, but like they're just whatever. They're whatever. Just grab them. They're there for is do the thing to get the reward. That's it.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're really there for.
It's not really developing any story at all. It's developing nothing.
Well, some of them can do a little bit of story stuff, but none of it is major or impactful to the major story of the game, the
Yeah.
overall narrative.
Yeah, I think this is one that the Twitter people got wrong. Hopefully when we discuss the winners that this I don't think we as RPG aficionados would I mean, we put it as a nominee, so hopefully we don't vote this to win because I don't even think it belongs there. All right, next we have, let me scroll down here. Best dungeons. Which dungeons feature the best puzzles, most fearsome foes, and the greatest and most engaging challenges? We have Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, we have Crosscode, Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE Encore, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition, honorable mention Paper Mario: The Origami King. I don't know who would have voted that in. Um,
I So that should have been in Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. I'm sorry, that game is trash. Trash.
I don't find it very appealing either.
It's trash. There's nothing interesting about the anything in that game, especially the dungeons, which is pretty much everything you're doing. I guess is a dungeon in Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles for the most part. I
Yeah,
mean, no. All right, so that game shouldn't even be on the list. Paper Mario should be on the list, and that shouldn't even win it. It should be between Fire, Tokyo Mirage Sessions and
yep,
Crosscode, because Xenoblade, I mean, it's kind of like run of the mill. You're exploring. There isn't really much in the way of puzzles, so there's some mini little basic switch flipping type
yeah,
stuff.
nothing
It's
crazy.
mostly about exploration, reaching the next area, and then navigating around potentially higher level, too high of level enemies,
You're right.
uh, and doing exploration to get treasure. So that's kind of it. It's pretty straightforward stuff. So it's not doing anything interesting. Whereas Tokyo Mirage Sessions and I'm assuming Crosscode are doing something more interesting. So I think it should go to them. But honestly, I think Paper Mario should get it because I think that one I know is doing interesting stuff with its dungeons.
So which one did you nominate?
Nominate Paper Mario. That would be my number one pick.
All right, all right. I don't know if I'm gonna agree with you. I think Crosscode definitely deserve it. I feel like the entire game is like is a dungeon, right? I mean, from what I've read and seen, I still haven't played it, but I don't know. I feel like Crosscode should be there. But let's see what the peoples think. But this is really the closest race here. Tokyo
Yeah.
Mirage Sessions is winning at 34%. At 32% is Xenoblade Chronicles. At 28%, it's Crosscode. And then Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is at 4%.
Yeah, see, all right, they got it right? They recognize how much trash Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is. And you know what would have happened is if Paper Mario was actually on that list, which it should have been, that would have been the number one because everyone would have recognized that Paper Mario, even though, right, name recognition probably would have gone to Xenoblade, like, yeah, people would have realized, like, yeah, Paper Mario, that should be on this list.
Sure. Oh man, that is that is funny. Um all right, best world design. We have towns, villages, wildlife, history, lore, and mysteries to be found. I'm thinking there's a typo there. Which world is the best to explore? Our nominees: Trials of Mana, Hades, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Bug Fables, with an honorable mention of Arafel Enhanced Edition. Um, I mean, just like you had said, the whole point of Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is to explore the world, talk to the people, see the wildlife, the vast amounts of wildlife there. I mean, that's the whole. It's an open world game, so this is
So many different
of all the.
biomes.
What's that?
So many different biomes that exist in there, and it's not only an open world game, it's an open world game that takes place on a pair of big giant titans.
Yeah,
The world is the titans themselves. They are the world. You're walking on their legs and on their waists and on their back and on their shoulders and on their arms. They are the world.
yeah. Yeah, it's
Incredible.
it's a really cool thing now. I mean, this is the category that Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition should win hands down. Trials of Mana. I haven't looked at the Twitter poll yet, but Trials of Mana is very. There's really not much exploring there. There's a lot. You're just basically on a path there. Hades. It's a randomized world every single time, so it's hard to really shoehorn that one in there. Bug Fables, I wish I had more experience with. Maybe I would appreciate that in this category. I'm not entirely sure what to think of that. But if we look at our Twitter poll, best world design, it's Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition at 45. Next closest is Hades and Trials of Mana. And Hades is at 24%.
Yeah, and Hades is pretty good for the world building. It's just Xenoblade is like definitively the best of the worlds because it's just so ambitious and
Right.
epic
Yeah.
in scale.
Yeah. That's the award that Xenoblade was meant to win. It's just made for it. All right, cool. Best visuals, graphic fidelity, and art direction. What package comes together to create a visual experience unlike any other? We have Hades, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Bug Fables, and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, with an honorable mention going to Star Ocean First Departure R.
I really don't understand why Star Ocean is there. That's not a visually appealing game,
No, not at all.
and Bug Fables is yet another non-visually appealing game. So why is that on this list? And why isn't Paper Mario on this list? And why is Ori, beautiful looking game by the way? Ori is in the Will of the Wisp, incredible looking. But why is Ori on this list and not Paper Mario? That like blows my mind now. because Ori is on this list, Ori should win it. Ori is hands down the best looking of this package. And then it's a toss up between Hades and Xenoblade. They're just two different art styles. They both look good on their own, uh, judged on in their own ways.
Hmm.
But Ori is just distinctly vastly superior to just both of them because it's just so well executed, cohesive. Hades does get a little down resolution on the. It gets a little blurry, not necessarily blurry, but the resolution does dive a little bit
Yeah.
here and sometimes.
Hmm.
But Ori is does it less if it does it at all. Runs super silky smooth on the frame rate, and it's just a visual feast for the eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have to agree with you on Bug Fables. I think, in terms of what they're trying to do, Paper Mario might do it better.
Way
Uh,
better. Paper
Um,
Mario Origami King actually, if Paper Mario Origami King was on this set of four, I would I would be hard pressed to recommend Ori over Paper Mario because I think Paper Mario was probably the best looking game out of all four of them.
yeah. Well, I'm not sure about that. I still I still think Ori
Yeah.
would be better than what Paper Mario did.
Yep.
Um, Hades and Xenoblade, I think you're right. They're kind of on par with each other. They're just doing something a little bit different. I would give maybe Hades the slight advantage only because I prefer that kind of art style that they kind of went for.
Yep.
Star Ocean, ugh. I don't I don't know. I have no answer for that, to be honest. I
That
just
makes
don't.
no sense at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's really really kind of a straightforward port of an old game. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But Ori and the Will of the Wisp, I think what the thought was that it's a Metroidvania, doing RPG elements similar to what, maybe, what's the game that we nominated before? I don't know.
It's
I
it's
think that
close.
was. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's closer to Metroid the way Ori plays. It's closer to Metroid, but even still, like, why if Ori can make this list, why isn't Paper Mario on this list?
Right.
That's what I'm getting at. Like it's like it's pretty clear. Like Bug Fables is literally on every single nomination. Oh, sorry, almost every
I will
single.
say though that Bug Fables is more of a straightforward RPG is than Paper Mario is.
Sure, sure, but Paper Bug Fables is riffing on Paper Mario.
Right,
Yeah,
but it's riffing on the Thousand Year Door version of Paper Mario,
and
not the Origami King version.
but that part doesn't matter. The part that matters is that Ori is allowed to show up on this list. Star Ocean, which is not a visually appealing game, and Bug Fables also not all that visually appealing. Like those games are allowed to be on this list, and Paper Mario isn't. That doesn't make any sense.
We need to write a letter
Yeah,
to the people at switchrpg.com. All
they
right.
dropped the ball.
They oh, sorry, who is winning that one? So best visuals is going to Ori at 43%.
Yeah.
Next going to Xenoblade Chronicles at 26.
How far away was Hades?
19.
Nah. Alright.
Like I said, I would, personal preference, I would give it over to Hades, but that's just me.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, best music. What tunes best set the mood? Somber, uplifting, action-packed, or otherwise, and immerse the player in the game world. Nominees: Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Hades, Trials of Mana, Bug Fables, and honorable mention to Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition. I will say that that might be the only redeeming quality for Crystal Chronicles
Yeah.
is the soundtrack.
I'm with you there.
Yeah, that's just the me thing. So yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles, I mean, I think for the most part is probably a runaway favorite for this.
Absolutely.
It's got very memorable tracks.
Yeah. This is the other category that Xenoblade Definitive Edition was made for is the soundtrack. So
Yeah.
I don't see anything coming close to it.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with Bug Fables. I again, I'd love to be. I like the music in Hades. I really like it, but it's really
Yeah,
in terms of what it's up against. I mean, there's no competition here, really. And Trials of Mana, while it's just I just didn't like they remade the the music to the game. I don't know. I think they made it worse, to be honest with you. They're all MIDI. There's no live orchestral stuff. I think that would have made a world of difference with Trials of Mana. If Trials of Mana stood away from the, I don't know if it. I don't even know if it's probably cheaper, maybe less expensive to do it all MIDI tracks and
yeah,
whatnot.
it's not chip tunes, it's cheap tunes.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, I would prefer the chip tunes over what they did.
Really?
Yeah, over what they did, you should hear it. I feel like they made it worse. They made it real worse. But yeah, I would have to guess that Xenoblade would be the runaway favorite for this. So yeah, they're at 50% of the voting. Next closest is Hades, then Trials of Mana. Hades is at 25%.
Yeah. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, makes sense to me as well. All right, next, second to last category, we have best characters, heroes, villains, and the supporting cast from both. Which game has the best ensemble of interesting characters? We have Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Bug Fables, Trials of Mana, Hades, honorable mention, Later Daters, which is it's an RPG sim of dating in your later years. Okay, we did review it. If you want to see the review for that, head over to switchrpg.com. I'm guessing it has memorable characters. I have no idea. I have to look into that one. But Bug Fables, maybe. I think that what this Bug Fables comes down to is I don't know that many people played it. Everyone's seen it, talked about it. Oh yeah, it's Thousand Year Door, but I don't know that many people have played it. So
I
then we
can't
have. I'm sorry.
well, I can't see the story or the characters being any more interesting than characters of Hades or Xenoblade. Like Xenoblade has some really good characters, well thought out, multi-dimensional, lots of nuance to them. But Hades also has that. It just has it. The presentation is just vastly different between Xenoblade and Hades,
Yeah.
character-wise. Trials, I'll leave that more to you to comment on.
Yeah, I think the characters in Trials are, if you played it, they're really kind of memorable. Some of them have really sad stories. Uh, some of them have really kind of traditional stories, I guess, in a sense. But they're all really kind of cool characters. And even the enemies you face, in terms of antagonists, are different and interesting. So Trials of Mana is definitely worthy of being on this list without a doubt. But I think I may have to give a nod to Hades, with Trials of Mana being second for me.
Yep.
Now I understand that Xenoblade Chronicles has very memorable characters as well, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would have to give it to Hades as well. It's just there's there's something special with the characters in Hades in that the stuff that they say, the ongoing dialogue that happens as you continue to play the game for hours and hours and hours, and how things never get repeated. They're
Yeah,
always saying something new, and there's something more that they're adding to the circumstances, whatever they may be, that you're currently going through. And they always have something to comment on that. It is insane how many lines of dialogue they recorded
yeah.
for Hades. Absolutely insane.
I think it was just a stupid funny thing. I think the second time I faced the first boss, and she was just like, "Oh, it's you again," and then like, let's do this. Let's get this over with.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I may have to say Hades, although Trials of Mana has some really cool characters. Let's see what Twitter says, because they are
And I can definitely see Xenoblade. People voting for Xenoblade.
Oh yeah, and
Because
don't
Xenoblade has some incredible characters and a big diverse set of characters
yeah, don't
too.
get me wrong. Xenoblade definitely does have it. This is just that was just personal
Yeah,
preference.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, Xenoblade is winning actually at 38.5. And then Hades at 37.4. So there's one
Wow,
percentage point
very
between
close.
both of them. And then Trials of Mana at 13, Bug Fables at 11.
Yeah, it's like one or two votes.
Did you vote, Johnny?
I voted. Yeah,
Okay, all right.
I forgot what I voted for, but I voted.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, that's really really close. So that may change. We'll see. And then the last but not least, RPG of the year, the one to rule them all. If you've been following along at all, you'll know at least 3 of these, right? Xenoblade
Yeah,
Chronicles Definitive Edition, Bug Fables, Hades, and then I'm gonna call this an outlier here, Crosscode.
I think
Because,
it fits.
well, if you go along the readings of reviews, initially it had a rough launch. I think it's rectified those, but if it has rectified those issues, then yes, it belongs on this list. If it hasn't rectified those issues, then I can't have it on here. It's just not allowed.
Yeah, but it's against giants, literal giants.
Right.
So I don't, even Bug Fables, like both Crosscode and Bug Fables, they got two big giant gorillas in the same room. Like
Yeah.
I feel bad for them because they're definitely great games, and I'm actually probably gonna eventually pick up Bug Fables. I should probably wishlist that and wait for it to hit a sale
Okay.
and grab it.
Yeah. Honorable mention to Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE
Yep.
Encore. Now, you're right. I think Crosscode and Bug Fables are staring up at mountains here.
Yeah.
I think I think Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition has one thing going against it. It's that whole remake port kind of remaster, that
Oh
whole
yeah.
thing. It's a 10-year-old game, right? So it's still the same game it was 10 years ago in my opinion. It's just
Yeah.
they've tweaked it in such a way to bring it to a new audience.
And they did tweak it in a fairly. They definitely went through a good effort, a very good effort
Mhm.
in tweaking things and enhancing things, updating a whole lot of textures, changing the models, right, for characters,
Sure.
and stuff like that. But I'm with you. Like
But
it,
there's no real spirit behind creating something new. Do you know what I mean? I think that whole
it
aspect
does
of
have some new stuff, right? It does have that new prologue, epilogue,
yeah,
post log, whatever it's called.
just not enough
No, I'm
for
with you.
me.
I'm with you. I mean, my pick, as much as I hate to do it, goes to Hades.
Yeah,
I mean, it's Hades is just that good.
right.
It's just that good.
I agree. I think it's a really good complete package.
Yeah.
Um don't get me wrong, I understand what Xenoblade Chronicles is and does and has done for the genre. It's just that I think I think it's not doing anything that it really hasn't done 10 years ago. And it's just put on, a new front. That's just
Yeah,
that's just a me thing.
it's an it's a game of the year from 10 years ago
Yep.
versus a game of the year this year,
Yeah.
right?
That's a great
And
way to put it.
yeah, I mean it's going to be Hades. Like it's fresh, it's new, and it does some things very differently that nothing else has sort of riffed on, and it's also the start of potentially something, right? There could be, I can easily see them doing like a Hades 2, a Hades 3, whatever,
Yeah.
right? They could easily turn this into a money making franchise.
Yeah. Which they haven't done with any of their other games, but money talks, right?
Kudos, yeah, kudos to them.
All right, so Twitter says it's Xenoblade. It's Xenoblade at 43% and
Wow.
Hades at 36%.
Okay. Well, I mean, those numbers, if you combine them, that definitely puts them both in mountain juggernaut
Yeah.
territory.
Yeah, so Crosscode was at 11 and Bug Fable's at 9.
Yeah, and hopefully the popular vote doesn't win. I mean, I'm kind of happy with either of them, but like to me, Hades deserves the victory here because
Yeah.
I think it's actually going to win just game of the year across everything, across all the platforms.
Yeah, for the Game Awards, it's I think it's nominated for Game of the Year, is that right? I
It
have to
better be.
look. Yeah, I think it
It is.
is.
It would be quite upsetting.
Yeah, that is our list of nominees. By the next time you hear this, we'll briefly go over the winners. Some you may now when I say winners, I'm not talking just Twitter. I'm talking about what the staff um has decided. Some of them may be in line with what Twitter says. Some of them may not be. We'll decide that. And then also next episode, we're gonna be looking into the future. We're gonna see what are we looking forward to in 2021. We'll kind of put together a short kind of list of games or RPGs that are coming to the Switch or not to the Switch. I don't know. Who knows? But that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Switchrpg podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember to send in your questions and comments. You can listen to the show each and every week at switchrpg.com, or you can subscribe on your favorite podcast app. If you listen on an app, please give us a rating and review. We want to climb up those charts on the platforms. So your support there would be amazing. And finally, remember, you can head over to switchrpg.com for all your RPG needs on the Nintendo Switch. Until next time, see you later.